All right. Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to our weekly call-in show, our live philosophy call-in show. You have the freedom, anybody can call in to the studio here. We're going to be using the link at the very top of the chat box. So if you find your way to the video, of course, on YouTube, then in the chat box, you open it if it's not already open, and then in the chat window, just find that pinned message at the very top, and it's a scroll bar says so. And that's the way you call in. You click on the link, you come right into the studio. You don't have to open up an account or anything. At least for right now, that's the way it's set up. And then yeah, you just call right in. Then you get to talk about anything. So just as a reminder, what would it look like if you were to call in? This is what it looks like. Again, this is just in the description of the video you're watching right this moment. So in the description, as I say here, is a philosophy call-in show. It can range from basic level concepts to higher level concepts. And I construe philosophy fairly broadly. Anything all across the history of philosophy, ancient Greek, antiquity, through medieval period, modern stuff, existentialism, postmodernism, basically whatever you want to talk about. Of course, I'm not an expert on everything, but we can try to work our way through it. You can see past guests here, past episode topics. And I also include in that as far as possible, within philosophy is going to be philosophy of religion. That seems to be a fairly common theme. As you can see, atheism, we talk about God, Christianity, Catholicism, faith and belief, that sort of thing. So if that seems to interest you, then you are in the right place. Of course, you clicked on a philosophy call-in show in the first place, so you know where you are. And so hey, Alex, good to see you. Good to see you. Welcome back. I'm glad you were at the last live I did earlier in the week on Monday. Good to see you back here. This is my standing kind of appointment live call-in. And then I have started to go with, I think what I'm going to do going forward, I'm taking some time to apply to jobs right now. So it's taking my attention away. And so whereas that attention had been put on crafting videos, editing, post-production, that sort of thing, and giving you actual well-produced videos there, or I hope that are well-produced. Now that attention has been taken away, it's on job applications and so on. And so with that, I do still have some attention to put on the channel. I wouldn't want it to totally go away at all. I still really enjoy doing this. I think it's a nice service to the community, to the public square. And I want to keep it up, of course, and see just what happens, no matter if I get a job or stay where I am. But that means that with that time taken away, I am just kind of focusing on this, my kind of cornerstone weekly call-in show here, and then also another live. So that is what you saw at the beginning of this week. I did a live. I'll show you here. If we go back to this, we'll go to my channel here. And if we go over to my live tab here, this is what this looks like. I clicked on the live tab. This is the one we are in currently. This one is still to come. It says scheduled, right? Over here, this one is the one I was referring to. This is the one I did on Monday. If you haven't seen it, please go watch it. And this is a new theme that I'm doing, as I said, given that I'm just giving this a little bit of attention. And so, I have all this stuff, prepared already that I teach in class at the university. And so I want to put that in a digestible form for you guys. That really was the original vision for the channel, to be honest with you. And, that vision evolves as I go forward and so on. But I want to kind of get back to that. In other words, I haven't gotten through all the lessons that I want to get through. This was one of them. It went a bit long, as you can see. I've got the whiteboard and all that, and went about 2 hours for that. But each lesson, you can expect them to be about an hour and 15 to 2 hours or so. And these are going to be the lives. So the one coming up next is called 3 Parts of Morality. It's another piece by C.S. Lewis. Actually, this one is taken from his his book called Mere Christianity. You may be familiar with it or heard of it or something. If you're not familiar with C.S. Lewis, of course, he's the author of the Chronicles of Narnia. And he wasn't just a children's author. In his day job, that was his side hustle. His day job was he was a literary professor of classics and English literature at Cambridge and Oxford. So he really, and he had some philosophical chops, and so he gives us something here that is a really nice piece that we're going to be working through together. So, all right. So that is kind of how I'm seeing the channel unfold and in the short-term future. So I will eventually get back to these long form, like if you were to, instead of just the lives, these long form videos over here, if you click on videos, I should tell you also, so this is a long form, well, not a long form. This is like a well-produced video. This is a well-produced video with all the edits and so on. That's what I mean by production. These other ones that you've been seeing have been interviews right here and right here, bookended on the top row. And I just met with some people. I'll probably break the news a little later to you guys, but there are more talks in. I'm probably going to do like a 10 video series on interviewing philosophers, like actual philosophers who are in academia and want to talk about their research, not just like this is boring research that we here's what I've been working on in the publications for the last 2 years, but mainly kind of framing it in terms of like, here are the big ideas that drive me and things I want to answer and so on. So that's going to be a cool series, basically like philosopher spotlight or something in academia. And I'm excited to bring that to you when it gets done. So in any case, so I see we have Alex in the studio. Awesome to see you, Alex. I'll get to a couple of these comments that are here, and then I'll jump right in with you. Good to see you, Coffee Smug. And then Michael D would love to hop on to chat, but I need to drive home from work. That's totally fine. I will be here for the next 2.5 hours, so there is plenty of time. Hope your commute is not that long, because that would be a horrible commute. So I will still be here by the time you get home, most likely. All right, Alex, we're going to bring you in, and it's good to see you again. Welcome back to the channel. And what do you want to talk about?
Yes, I was sort of just talking about this to my dad the other day, and I was sort of quite interested to see what your thoughts were. But we were just talking about like the relationship with God to you or to other Christians, and especially to Catholic, because I know it's sort of different. You probably have a different view to the Protestantism type of
I
view, I
do.
guess.
Yeah.
And because my dad was sort of saying he doesn't have a very close relationship, and he doesn't think he's that important. But I guess to other denominations, they'll probably feel like they have a closer view to connection to God, I guess.
Mm-hmm. You say you don't feel like you have a very close connection to God?
Oh, sorry, Protestants, yeah.
Oh. Yeah, well, are you, wait, hold on, back up. Are you saying that you don't, so are you remind me, I don't think you're anything, are you?
Yes, I would say I'm an atheist, but I was just saying my dad, what my dad's views were and everything.
Got you.
So
Okay.
he said, yeah. So he says that he thinks that he doesn't have a particular close relationship with God.
Interesting. And he's a Protestant?
He's a Protestant, yeah.
Oh,
he's sort of referring back to the Jacob story or Joseph story, or whatever, where they sort of he is not a very close knitted relationship, but like, yeah, obviously God just still delivers him in the end, but like overall he's not very close throughout the story.
Yeah, you do get some stories like that in scripture where it's not apparent that God is present, like some of them, like in the book of Job, it's pretty explicit that God is a character, let's say, in the story. Like he is one in the cast, and if you were to cast this and put on a play, you would have to cast him. In the book of Genesis, where the Joseph story is, it's not obvious that God would need to be cast as a character. It's sort of hidden in the background. But that happens. That happens in the book of Ecclesiastes. It's like that as well. It's just not obvious. It's just in the book of Proverbs, it's not obvious as well. Those aren't really narratives or anything, but But so that's the example he used. That's understandable, and I guess it depends honestly on which individual you're speaking with, whether they feel a closeness with God and stuff. Like I would venture to say that it would probably differ on their constitution, like how they're constituted, as a person. Like if you're more emotional, you might feel a more emotional connection to God. I'm kind of a more heady intellectual type, hopefully a little bit of emotion too. I'm not too overly intellectual. Not to say that's smart, but like just intellectually driven. And so I may not kind of feel God. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah. What does this mean for you though? Hearing your dad say that. And
Yeah. What
I don't know if it marks
sort
out a difference between Protestants and Catholics though. I wouldn't say it marks out the difference between those two though.
Yeah, I know it's
Sorry,
just
but go
sort
ahead.
of interested. Like, yeah, there's quite a lot of denominations thing. I mean, my sister, for instance, she's more evangelical
Mm,
space, and she thinks, oh, there's a real pull there, and she thinks, oh, that she talks to God all the time. And she really thinks
right.
there's something there. But yeah, but I guess to other
Yeah.
people, yeah, but I guess it may not be either way. But yeah, I guess like the whole point I was sort of making is I was sort of listening to this other podcast. I think I was listening to Alex O'Connor. I don't know if you heard of him.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, he was sort of saying, "What is God?" And I thought that was quite an interesting question because, say, like to God, like can he actually feel love? Can he actually, change sort of
Hmm.
perspectives of things? So I was sort of just quite interested
Yeah.
on what your sort of views were on that, I guess, as
Yeah. Yeah.
well.
Alex O'Connor is coming from a agnostic perspective. I
Yeah,
think that's correct. And I like him because even though he's agnostic, I don't agree with everything on with him, of course. But since I'm Catholic, I'm Christian. But I do appreciate his like honesty and openness. This is the same with like people like Jordan Peterson. I mean, I know they're in different worlds, but he also is somebody who strikes me as like a at least intellectually honest person who's willing to like follow the truth, even though it may be uncomfortable. And I can say this about both those guys. I don't think either of them is Christian. I just respect that, that outlook. But as far as like, yeah, that's a good place to start, I suppose. Like what God is a good philosophical question to start with. And are you wondering what like kind of my response to that would be?
yeah. What yours?
Is
Because
it?
I know, so
Yeah,
obviously you would probably be a bit
yeah, yeah,
different to
yeah.
like a Protestant type of view, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I'd probably take the classic philosophical approach and the classic um, theology approach that says that God is absolute being and the ground of all reality. He's creator, maker, sustainer of all the world and creation, and he is worthy of all desire and worthy of our worship. Like all those things, and of course, he's a Trinitarian God, God three in one, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And yeah, I hold all the creeds of Christianity with respect to the going back to the Apostles' Creed and to the Nicene Constantinople Creed and so on. Yeah.
Yeah, because I guess like I was sort of more like, how can he sort of change? Like is he in the position that he could change sort of like the way the world works? Like
Right.
how Jesus sort of just was able to like turn the water into wine, just something just like that. But
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
now
So,
that
but
Jesus left, like, or that God's not really interfering with the world. Do you think he's just letting the world carry on as it is, or?
yeah, yeah. So this would definitely be a possibility on Christian theism. On deism, you'd have to believe, well, just God created the world and kind of just left and doesn't interfere. But on Christian theism, really on any stripe of Christian theism, you have to allow for miracles. I mean, you have to at least allow for the bare minimum miracle, Christ's resurrection. I mean, I say it's a bare minimum, but like you have to at least allow for one miracle, well, or two if you count the creation event as a miracle as well. The whole question, I think, among Christians where they disagree is like whether if this question right here, if miracles stopped at some point in history or if they continue on. That would be like the big area of dispute. And then, but yeah, so as far as like why that is allowed, I mean, if God, I mean, obviously God could do miracles if he's God, he's all powerful, he can do anything. But for him to do a miracle is not necessarily a violation of the laws of nature because the laws of nature are just such as they seem to us, the regularities that we can observe in nature, like just from our perspective. So far as we have seen, this is like epistemically speaking, the world works like this, and that is not like, that's not a definitive thing that now the universe has to operate by. It's just our understanding of how the universe is operating. Say, take the law of gravity or something like that. So if God does something, say, to suspend the law of gravity, or there's an incident in the Old Testament where God makes the sun stand and gives you a few hours of the day or something, and there was one battle where this happened. You can look it up. And so, it's certainly possible to do that, to have, let's say, a variation, a blip in the radar. But epistemically speaking, the universe is not beholden to the laws that we write down. Like, here's my description of how I think things are going. Now it has to follow it. No. The universe is going to do whatever it's going to do. And if God, after all, if he created the universe a certain way, it's certainly within the realm of possibility that he would change things within the universe he created. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was sort of listening to your earlier interview with the mental health person, I
Yeah.
guess, as you were sort of that, and
Josh
I guess you
Yen.
would
Yeah.
feel, yeah. So I guess you would sort of say that God's working in ways to help that person to get better. For instance, would you say,
I
or
would
would
think
you
so.
not quite
Yeah,
agree?
I would think so. And I would say, look, here's the thing though, too. God is not a law of nature himself. God is a person. In fact, he's three persons in one.
Yeah.
So given that God and his actions are personal, they're not like law, or as philosophers say, they're not gnomic in nature. They don't follow laws. Like persons don't follow laws in the sense of like they're regular. And so we're not robots, right? We're persons that have wills and have desires and can act on things in the world. So that being said, God will do whatever he wills. He'll do whatever pleases him, and so on and so forth. So just like any other person would, he operates like a person. So if somebody's looking for, let's say, a quick, cheap fix of like, well, I prayed this prayer, God didn't do it. Well, I mean, God's not a slot machine or something, or like, just a quick fix it thing. It really is just like, I don't know. It's a relationship, really. When people say it's a relationship, this is what they mean, because this would be like, well, I did this for my wife. I got her flowers and she didn't do anything. It's like, well, I mean, like there's so many ways in which that can go to explain why, she didn't reciprocate or something like that, So it would be a similar sort of situation. So yes, it's certainly possible with, say, mental illness that God can intervene and work on the behalf, like imbue certain graces in a person's life. And I mean, if you think about it, even in the Psalms and the Proverbs talk about, in Ecclesiastes, just the sun shining is a grace that we take for granted. All these graces and hidden graces. Graces are the things that we don't deserve. There are plenty of those to go around, but there might be special graces in the case of when you pray and you have mental illness, or you have any problem and you would like to offer it up in prayer and ask God to help with it. I do believe certainly that God offers and imbues these special graces upon you, whatever they may look like. He may not just take the problem away, but whatever they may look like. And then there may, if that doesn't happen, there may be certainly viable reasons why it wouldn't, because again, you're working with a person.
Yeah. And I guess that's sort of like sort of try to summarize, I guess, a bit. But I guess that's one of the reasons why I'm not a Christian, for instance, because I
Mm-hmm.
don't think, oh, there is a particular relationship there, and I feel like, oh well, if there's so much
Yeah.
bad stuff happening in the world, like, oh, why doesn't God just go in
Yeah.
and if you are praying and do have a relationship, like, why is he caring more about you, for instance, than there's so much other stuff in the universe to care about, I guess.
I
And
see.
I just feel
Yeah.
like it's like, I feel like a lot of these, a lot of Christians, I just feel, or they feel, they just feel like the whole lives is surrounded by God, but like,
Yeah.
surely you should be
It does
doing
seem,
something
yeah. And I
else.
can understand, like, if an atheist or agnostic non-believer says that seems really narcissistic and like self-centered, right? It's totally
Yeah,
understandable, because we can't wrap our minds around the idea of a God, a creator of the universe, who actually cares about us. You know, I mean, because if he is all powerful in this really big thing, like why would he care about me? That's a totally fine and reasonable perspective to have. It's just one of humility. I think it's like I don't really matter all that much in the grand scheme of things. That's totally true. But the Christian faith also believes that God did become incarnate for the very purpose of kind of radically saving and redeeming humanity that fell into sin. So, and you'll find that in no other belief system. The idea that this God cared so much, not only cares about you as an individual, but cares so much about his creation that he wants to fix it, and then is willing to offer himself for it. Like that. That's not a story you hear in any other theology.
I mean, I've been looking into like Indian sort of like Buddhism sort of type of beliefs as well, and there is a bit of that as well. I feel like especially after talking to a few of them, they do feel like they have a bit of a relationship as well with
Hmm.
the type of God. But I guess it's probably not quite to the extreme as Christian God, I would say, but
Yeah.
it's still sort of there.
You mean like Hinduism?
Yeah, but yeah,
Yeah.
Hinduism. That's what I was meaning.
Yeah. Yeah. I can imagine um, some Hindu believers would think that certainly, and like so Hindus are, to my understanding, there's a version. They're mostly polytheistic. There might be a sense in which they're also
Yeah,
kind of pantheistic as well, and that's understandable. You would have some sort of personal relationship with the gods or a certain specific god here or there. But what marks out the difference between Hinduism and Christianity, as I said, is that on Hinduism, there's no special reason why these gods should care about me. You know what I mean? Like they got a whole universe to run, or say they're the god of agriculture or crops. It's like, it's not just my farm field that they should be interested in. So, kind of the same similar problem arises. It's like, why me? But it's consistent with Christian theology and the whole Christian story of salvation that's the whole setup. God does care about you. Like that's evident from the very beginning. It's not hidden in there. It's not like this is an additional thing. By the way, God cares about you. It's like that's the central core idea upon which it's built. It's like God cared so much about you that not only did he come down and become incarnate and live a life, as a human being, but he also sacrificed himself. He sacrificed himself and was willing to die for you. That right there is like, I think somewhere in the scripture, I think it's in John, it says, they will know your love by this, that you lay down your life for another person. And of course, Christ did that. Jesus did that. So like, if that is the standard of like, okay, prove to me that you love me, you're going to die for me. Well, done. And no other deity dies for his creation.
yeah. Because I guess like the problem with atheism, I guess for me, is like to be a struggle to convince people because it's like I'm offering nothing basically. When I died, there's going to be nothing
Yeah.
basically. But for you, at least you have that sort of specific love, I guess, that you're going to have something there, I guess.
I mean, it's a hope too. It's but I think all love is kind of like that as well. All love is a kind of a hope. Like you can't know for certain that your family loves you. Like
Yeah,
there's no mathematical proof you can demonstrate to show that or with my wife or with my son or something. Like, I mean, it is a hope, and you can have a secure hope. There's a sense in which there's a difference between like a false hope and a secure hope. So there's just a secure hope when you have like evidence for that, but it's still a hope in the sense that it's not certain. So it's a hope that when I die I will go to heaven. But there's no certainty with it, otherwise it wouldn't be
yeah.
called hope or faith. Yeah.
I think one of my favorites of my dad's arguments is the Pascal wager, and I think he
Yeah.
really likes the idea is because he's like, oh well, at least it's something, I guess, rather than even if there's nothing, at least it's got that
Yeah.
sort of
Yeah.
hope, I guess, even though there's no particular certainty out there, at least
Yeah.
there's a
Did
chance.
you I don't know, you've been around for a while and seen my stuff for a while. So have you seen my
Yeah,
video on Pascal's wager? Yeah. Did you show it to
I
him?
think I saw it. Um,
Okay.
I should give it. I'll ask him to watch it. Actually, yeah, he might find it quite
Yeah, see what he
interesting.
thinks and then have him call in and stuff. Yeah. Yeah, why did he raise you Christian, or it seems like your sister is?
Uh, so we're part of a Christian family. I'd say it's called Church of England, and
Hmm.
I've
So you
sort of
grew up
been,
Christian, and then
yeah.
what happened for
Well,
you that you?
well, I don't think I ever was a proper true Christian. I
Okay,
don't think I was more just it was always just in the family, so I thought sort of went along with it until I
got you.
sort of started questioning myself, and then realized I wasn't really never really was a
Yeah,
Christian, I'd say.
got
But
you.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, this is a problem in the Catholic Church. We call it just a lack of catechism, whether it be like catechism is like the training or teaching about what you believe. And we
yeah,
see this a lot. We see even Catholics, becoming full-fledged adults and not even knowing what the Catholic faith teaches, for example. Maybe that's you, maybe it's not, but we also see people who, when they grow up in this situation, then they realize, oh crap, I didn't know all that much, and then I learned about my faith, and they'll describe what's called like a deepening of conversion or like a reconversion. You know what I mean? And so it's like they're kind of filling in all the blanks that they never got. But it is like at a certain age, you kind of have to take, you don't just kind of, even if you remain Christian, let's say,
yeah,
you still have to take ownership of your faith, and the Catholic Church allows for this as well. Just for example, I just keep using it as an example because it's my, my kind of starting point here, what I'm working with. But the Catholic faith, we have baptism, Holy Communion, and we have confirmation. And confirmation happens
yeah.
like at a
So
young age, roughly. Yeah, same
yeah,
with you guys with the Anglican Church of England, and that is one attempt to kind of allow for people as they grow up in the faith to kind of take ownership. But like, I mean, in our archdiocese, they just lowered the age of confirmation to I think like age 9 or something, which I think is super young still. I'd like to see some sort of something. Uh, I mean, you do want it young enough, but like, I think 13, 14 is probably good. But like, you'll see these people talk about a deepening a conversion that happened later for them, like say like 17, 18, 19 or something like that, and even into
yeah.
young 20s.
Yeah, because I was confirmed as well, but I just
Yeah.
didn't really. It was more of just saying, "Oh, yes," sort of
Yeah.
thing. But
Yeah.
that was a bit about it, really. And to say it's like until you really, yeah. So for me, I don't think it'd be very hard for me to actually believe. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's sort of I'm sort of interested, I guess, on why people believe and different people's different perspectives on stuff as well. I guess
Yeah.
rather than just looking at from one specific
Of course.
denomination, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah. And that's why I do this too. Um,
Yeah.
is everybody in your family, you say your mom, or sorry, your dad, your sister, are they still Church of England? You said your sister is evangelical. Now, is your dad still
Yes.
Anglican?
Yeah, so my dad's
Okay.
very Anglican, and my
Okay.
brother's sort of like in this modern Church of England
Got you.
sort of style because there's quite a
Yeah.
lot of different types of
Got
those.
you.
But
Yeah.
yeah, it's all quite interesting, really. Only atheist, I guess, in the family, but it's
Yeah.
what it
I will
is, I
say
guess.
this. And we're out of time here, but and I'll say this, and I'll let you close out with whatever comments you like, and then but I have heard, I've seen this in my own experience, and then I had it confirmed by seeing it with Joe Heschmeyer. He runs a channel called Shameless Popery. I did a video with him, but well known like Catholic Answers guy in Catholic circles. But anyway, uh, I realized that most of the atheists I interact with are not like, let's say, um, leaving the Catholic faith. They're more often than not leaving the Protestant faith in whatever form that takes. And I think you see this in like the thinking, and it's like because especially, yeah, I could say a lot more about this, but I think if you look at Joe Hesmeyer, I'll have to find the video, but he's got statistics actually on this. It was just kind of my anecdotal experience, and then I realized that he had like data on this, and I was like, wow, that actually confirms what I said or what I thought myself. But yeah, maybe I'll make a video about this or something. But just in passing, that's just what I noticed, and that almost every atheist or agnostic that I talk with is somebody who was once Protestant, like that. I don't think to date, I've been doing this about a year and a half now. I don't think I've ever talked with an atheist who was once Catholic. And I just think that's very striking. So whatever that means, I don't know. But anyway, last word here.
I know that's great. Yeah, I say I've sort of now gone slightly off topic a bit as well, but but
Yeah.
yeah, that's great information anyway.
Yeah. Very interesting. So, all
Yeah,
right. Well,
yeah. Thank
Alex,
you
I
very much.
appreciate you, man. And I will see you next time you call in. So
Yeah,
have a wonderful evening.
thanks.
See ya. All right. All right. good to talk to Alex. It's always good to have another person show back up. I haven't seen him. I saw him in the chat last time, and that was always really good to have return visitors and so. So the chat is open still. Not just the chat, but the call-in link. So as you remember, as you can see on the scroll bar, as you can see in the description to the video, if you've been here, you know how this works. There is a link to call in. You jump right into my studio. You don't have to log in or create an account or anything like that. And you get to talk about any sort of philosophy whatsoever, whether it be philosophy, whether it be even things about the faith, as we just did with Alex, or I construe that as philosophy broadly construed, just because it's really under philosophy of religion. A lot of those topics. And then if you know anything about philosophy of religion, you know that philosophy of religion encompasses, so many other subfields of philosophy. We're talking like epistemology. Epistemology is like the study of knowledge, and like, how do you know what you know? I mean, that applies pretty easily to philosophy of religion and matters of faith. It's like, well, how do you know? What evidence do you have of that? Does God exist? Well, is afterlife real? That sort of thing. That's all in the wheelhouse of epistemology. It's going to incorporate matters of metaphysics, of course, like what is God like? That sort of thing. So yeah, if you're going to bring up matters of faith, I mean, it is a very fitting conversational topic here in this space. So, all right, yeah. Thanks. Good to see you. And I think it's Nathaniel, if I'm not mistaken. And then you say, trying to think of something to talk about. Lost my Bluetooth. Not even sure if I could do it on my speakerphone. Yeah. Morals and ethics as well. Gosh, I didn't even know why I didn't think about that. This is my specialty as well. I love thinking about virtue ethics. And yeah, and the church, the Christian church, has a lot to say about this. This is not just a religious thing. I actually teach on intro to ethics at my university, and we cover a lot of different traditions. And a lot of people kind of have this mistaken idea that if you're going to talk about ethics or morals, that it's like has to be religious or something. And of course, like, people are going to balk at that and be like, oh no, morality is just socially constructed. And it's like, come on, no, it's not. If anybody wants to jump on and talk about that, we can talk about that. But yeah, it's not socially, culturally constructed whatsoever. And they think that, like, me talking intro to ethics, that I'm just going to like present them with a religious case. And it's like, no, actually, like, most of the ethical or moral philosophers throughout all of history have not been religious people, or at least they've not had religious arguments. Let's say they may have been religious people. Let's take, for example, like Aristotle or Plato. I mean, both of them may have believed in the gods of Greek mythology, but they were certainly not making religious arguments. They're not like religious figureheads in any sense of the word. So they were certainly philosophers through and through. So yeah, certainly morals or ethics, like the trolley problem. Yeah, I do too. It is a classic. Yeah, if anybody want to get on and talk about that, we could talk about that. Anytime I talk about that in my ethics class, students eat that up. I maybe should just do a video about the trolley problem, just like a live call in or something. See, here's the thing. Like, I've learned by changing it to this kind of venue of YouTube, I've learned that it's got its benefits, but it's got its drawbacks as well. Like, because in a classroom setting, it's almost like you're a stand-up comedian. You can like that's the kind of the closest thing I would like put it to. Like, it's public speaking, and you're going through your lesson, your ideas, basically. You're going through your script, let's say, and you have like a real-time interaction with people who you can see their faces. You can see like they're understanding, yes, or they're just kind of confused, and you can call on people and ask them to verbally express what they disagree with or what they find confusing or something. But this is very limited. It would be hard, I think, to do the trolley problem. When I do the trolley problem in class, it is a massive hit. It's probably the most popular lesson that we do all semester. But when I'm trying to apply that to here, it'd be hard to do, because I'd have to not only, I may need a dual monitor setup, because I would need to like follow what's happening in the chat. So just like I can call on people, and I'd also need to still have a screen where I'm, working, a PowerPoint or images or a whiteboard or something. That's the thing too, like in a classroom, I have a whole whiteboard. I don't have to worry about a digital screen that I have to switch back over to or something like that for a whiteboard. It's just there and I can go to it and I can walk away and so on and so on. So it's very weird. It's a very weird setup in this digital age, but you guys benefit from it. So, yeah. So maybe that's a video. Let me know, actually. Let me know in the chat. Give me a 1 in the chat. Just drop in a number 1 in the chat and hit enter if you would want to see a video on the maybe a live video on the trolley problem. Would you want to see that? Just drop a 1 in the chat. I don't see any 1s. Maybe I shouldn't do it. I don't ever do this, but yeah. Okay, Lisa says 1. Good. Yeah. Yeah, so I'm thinking about doing that. And since Alex, you brought it up, you probably would be down with it. Good. Yeah, these are double 1s. Okay. I take that to be like doubly affirmative, not just 11 wasn't an option, but I'll take it as like a double 1. Yeah, cool. So, cool. Yeah, good to see you all here. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up. That's something that, you know what? After I do my lesson on 3 parts of morality, I was kind of thinking like, what's next? I think that would be a perfect fit. So obviously this is going to be next Monday, this coming Monday on the 10th. I think for, what would that be? Add 7 days, it'd be the 17th on a Monday. I'll probably just do that, and that'll get us almost to Thanksgiving. And then what I envision, actually guys, let me show you my, let me just show you my syllabus. This is wild. I don't think I've ever shown you a syllabus here on my channel here. But since we are at a place where we have space and nobody's calling in right now, this is what my syllabus looks like. Oh, no. Let's pull it up. That'll work either way. There we go. That's fine. Okay. So hopefully you guys can see that. You might have to zoom in a little bit. It's a little small right there, but yeah, let's take you up to, for example, make sure you can still see it. Oops, pull that out. There we go. Okay, cool. So let's, yeah, there we go. Okay. Let's come to the top. Obviously, this is just like an intro to ethics class. Let me scroll down. Really, the most interesting part, since I'm not awarding you any points or grades or anything like that, really it's just the layout, right? So normally I do a section on preliminaries where I'm like, all right, let's just talk about before we even get into ethics. And some of this stuff I've already done, like this right here, humanizing the philosophers. This is now a video. I actually assigned them this video in class. Let me show you what that video, I'll show it to you later, but it's just a video called Can You Beat This Philosophy Quiz or something like that. It's a quiz about, matching a fun fact about a philosopher to whatever philosopher has that. And then, so that's on the channel right now. This is on the channel right now because this is just like this is in my voting video, who should I vote for video. I'm wearing a blue shirt and it was done about a year ago, right before the election. That's on the channel. This lesson is on the channel, the value of philosophy. This stuff on moral relativism is on the channel. So I did like a 3-part video series about this, and I collaborated and did some discussions with Lance Bush over at Lance Independent. He's a great guy. And I learned a lot, and I actually modified my syllabus because of my discussions with him. Like I added an extra day, and I changed the way I teach on this. So it was very productive. So now we're in the second page here, and I just did Men Without Chests. Next one would be 3 parts of morality. And then at that point, like you can see, now we're past the preliminaries. We're into Unit 1 on normative ethical theories. And at this point, what are ethical theories? Well, I mean all the things that have these isms, like ethical egoism, hedonism, utilitarianism, and even virtue ethics later on. And so really this would then become, after I do this lesson next Monday, it would then become like a short mini series on ethical theories as I teach them in class. They're not going to be like really heavy in depth, but they'll give you enough information to where you're like, oh, okay, I know more about that theory, right? So this is not about a theory. It's kind of like a preliminary stuff about the theories. It's like, here's how to approach ethics. And I might do a video on that, but I don't quite know if I will or not. But usually if I'm going to a trolley problem, obviously it's going to come in at this lesson. And it's quite a fun thing. And I would probably do a trolley problem video like in place of this. I'll just do a trolley problem video like right after that. Put it in here and then do a short mini series on these ethical theories. Good thing you don't have a midterm. Aren't you guys so glad you don't have a midterm? And then I'll do a couple of lessons on Aristotle's virtue ethics, which I don't know why I haven't done one of these yet, but that would be the next ethical theory, virtue ethics from Aristotle, virtue ethics from Aquinas, and that would end essentially end the little mini series on ethical theories. So yeah, if you're interested in any of that, so that could be cool. And you might be interested in the rest of the syllabus. The rest of the syllabus, basically, after we get through ethical theories, I see you there, Oyvind. Really glad you're here. So I'd love to talk to you. So we'll jump in with you here in a sec. But yeah, the rest of the syllabus would just be a little political community and law section, like political philosophy, which I see as still an ethical concern. It's just ethics on a large scale. And then the next unit would be the interior life, that is ethics on the interior scale. So ethics writ large in the community and ethics on a small scale in the interior life. And that's basically my whole syllabus. So if that interests you, then you might be really interested in that. So thanks for actually raising that possibility. That's a really good idea. So, okay, let me just get to a couple of these comments and then, all right, he says, everything on my mind is either business or fiction. Do you like fiction? Depending on what fiction it is. I don't read a lot of fiction, but I have some of my favorites. Like, I have not read Les Miserables or even seen the movie, for better or worse. And, yeah, so I do love Crime and Punishment, though. That was one of my favorites from high school. So, and then Lord of the Rings, of course, and Harry Potter and Chronicles of Narnia, that sort of stuff. So I'm familiar with like some classics, but certainly not a lot of them since I don't read fiction. My wife would be somebody to talk to about that more than me. Could always listen to business talks too. That would be interesting. Yeah. All right, cool. So we have our next guest here, Oyvind. It's great to see you back. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. Good to be here.
Good. Yeah. Glad that you're here. I'm good. Yeah. Let me turn you down quite a little bit. There we go. I'm good. Yeah, things are well for me. I can't complain. And yeah, family's healthy. Life's good. Weather's changing as it should. That sort of stuff. So nothing to complain about. Yeah.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I'm taking your bait, as it were.
Okay, cool. What was it?
On the morality.
Yes. Okay. All right. Cool. So, yeah. Tell me. Let's get this counter going, and then tell me how you would like to proceed, and I'll just follow your lead on it.
I just want to explore it with you.
Okay, sure.
Because you seem to your reaction says that, like, obviously objective morality, or I'm not sure what exactly is obvious to you, but to me it's obvious that objective morality doesn't make sense and is not true. So
got you. Yeah, that would totally make sense. And then excuse me. So I view it this way, and tell me what you think about this, that if you're going to ground morality, or like ground its reasonability, or like from whence it comes, where it comes from, whether that be objective or subjective morality, it's really only going to you're only going to find three sources of morality. One is going to be biological or evolutionary. In other words, within human nature somehow. And this would also include if it's a metaphysical grounding within the human being, but basically it's going to be within humans, either cognitively or non-cognitively. So even Aristotle would be like, I ground it in humans, I'm just going to ground it metaphysically. Or it can be social or cultural grounding. Like it's not within a human being individually, but it's going to be within human beings writ large. It's going to be socially constructed. The third one would be transcendence. And this is where a lot of religious systems will ground their morality, whether it be in gods, the supernatural deity, as lawgivers, or it might be in Platonic forms, right? So the good, right? It's just going to be the source of morality. And this would be Plato's result. So, do you agree with that assessment in terms of like those are the options?
Like I haven't thought about it too much.
Okay,
like,
that's fine.
Because in the sense that I've heard you make those three categories before, and I there's some spidey sense tingling for me that doesn't have to be those, but
okay, yeah,
my comeback would be why do I need grounding?
Yeah, well, you would have to ground it in. So I totally respect that there's some spidey sense about like, okay, I'm a little skeptical here. I'm open to those not being the only three, but I'm trying to just explore the logical space here. And so far as I can see, those would be logically your only options. It's going to be either it's within human, so it's either grounded in human beings or it's not grounded in human beings. And it's going to be grounded in individuals or groups, or it's going to be grounded in not human beings, would just be transcendent. So grounding would mean that there's a rationale or a base for where morality comes from. It's an answer or an explanation as to where the morality comes from. So I'm not trying to sneak in or like get you into a corner or anything. I think it's open to you if you said, oh, well, those aren't the only three, I'd be open to that. But I think it doesn't put you into any corner. If you wanted to be a non-realist about this, I think you could just say it's going to be socially, culturally constructed. Or even if you were a relativist or subjectivist, you could say, no, I'll take the first option. It's going to be within the individual. You know what I mean? So I don't see if this is like a problematic option. I just want to kind of lay some groundwork, but that's totally fine.
Yeah. So I'm not sure actually where I would fall in.
Okay, that's fine.
If it's purely like grounding is purely like a why, an answer to why,
yeah,
or how, or like an explanation.
Why, how, where it comes from, an explanation as to,
and it's not
where this morality comes from.
If it's not inherently metaphysical, I agree that it's like you probably need something.
Yeah.
But so my view is that like the capacity of morality, I think, is evolutionary, and I think the contents is also evolutionary, but it's also socially constructed.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's just learning. Part of it is just learning, like, which I think your values is like what you're taught as a child.
So if you're in Nazi Germany, they're not going to be taught good values. So
yeah,
there's a risk there, of course. Like if you just say, well, your values are just what you pick up from your environment or what you're socially taught, there's a real danger for that option. What would you say to that?
Yeah, I totally agree.
Because now this kind of puts someone in a position of like, well, darn, now I have to, and I'm now in a position where I have to admit that there are some societies that teach good values, some societies that don't teach good values. Okay, well, that means that societies aren't the last judge on what good values are. Like just because a society teaches it doesn't mean it's good morality or that it's, that's the standard,
I guess I don't quite believe in the normativity of morality.
What do you mean by that?
I believe morality is it's a phenomenon, and what I was talking about is just a description of it. So
okay.
So the fact that some societies are taught bad values is just a fact.
It would just be neither good nor bad that they're taught bad values. How do we know that they're bad values, though? You would just say
I have my opinion of whether they're good or bad values.
Yeah. So, but that puts you in a position of not being able to strongly condemn what Nazi Germany is doing.
I can
right?
condemn them as strongly as my emotions are.
Which aren't, I mean, it's very limited though. It's like, I feel very passionate about this. Like, it's not very authoritative. I mean, I'm just one person, and maybe I can join up with a lot of people who also agree with me, who condemn it, but like,
Yeah.
there's no sort of like authority. Like, let's say Germany won World War II, and has all the power,
Yeah.
like, just because we disagree. I mean, this is like Man in the High Castle, the Philip K. Dick novel that got turned into a TV show. Great show, by the way. The Man in the High Castle. It imagines like Germany and Japan, they won the war, and then they take over the U.S. and like split it between Germany and Japan. It's great stuff. So yeah, that totally could possibly happen. And that hypothetical scenario, those just, even if I disagreed, well, so what? I'm not in a position to have any authority about imposing my values on anybody. It's just, I just disagree.
Like, but where what would be like the mechanism of that authority anyway? I could say God condemns you.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah,
Doing
that
wrong.
would be the next
And they
thing to
could say, I
yeah.
disagree. I disagree.
Very
with
good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good. So the objectivist, say me as a Christian, as a Catholic, you're very right to point this out. I would have the similar problem in, well, okay, what makes this enforceable, right? And so I can always say, as you would probably suspect me for to say, that there will be a final judgment, and you're like, of course, like, oh yeah, tell me more about that, like, so
That's all
exactly.
of that is
No,
rhetoric.
I don't think it's
basically
rhetoric.
but does it have any effect beyond rhetoric? Like, you can put.
Well, yeah, it's easy to
you can put the universe behind you on your team. That's what you're
trying to do. Yeah. That's totally fine. And be completely wrong about that. I totally agree with that as well. Like, that's not a good look, of course. Yeah. So, but I think you also have some other resources here as a Christian. You can say, in an objective morality, there's enforceability here because of natural consequences with respect to the natural moral law, right? So that the moral law that, we can't see, we can't, it's not written down anywhere. It's just it's just the moral fabric of the universe. And so, and it offers consequences. And so an atheist non-believer would look at this and be like, well, no, that's just the way the world works, or that's just the way society works, or that's just the way consequences work. But a Christian, a theist, is very welcome to come back and say, well, why does it work that way? You know what I mean? Like, if there's no meaning or order to the universe, why should it work in such a way that anybody who does bad gets bad consequences? Not all the time, but like, generally speaking, and they will point to God being the author of those consequences. Like, he built it into the order of the universe such that natural consequences will follow. Like, for example, if you father a bunch of children and then don't look after them, like, natural consequences will follow. You will destroy your relationships. That's just a natural consequence. You know what I mean?
I think the causality arrow doesn't go the same way probably, but I think it's fully captured by an evolutionary explanation where evolution shaped our moral tendencies in a way where things turn out advantageously.
That's a good rejoinder. You're saying that, well, because of evolution, it is shaping us to make us believe that these are the morally right things. But these are just the things that are like morally, or they're just the things that are like evolutionarily successful or something like that. Obviously, a man needs to stick around to care for his children or something, right? So the arrow causation, you're very right to point that out. So what could I say in response to that? I could say that not all evolutionarily successful practices are things that are morally good. You know what I mean? Like, there are going to be things like, I don't know, destroying all my enemies or rivals, let's say sexual rivals. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's not morally good to do that, but it would be evolutionarily successful for me, or for my kind, or sowing my gene somewhere. And so evolution is not always, it will select for what's successful, but it won't select always for what's moral.
Well, who says our morals, which are more lenient than what you're saying? They're more loving. our morals. We have an aversion to blindly killing our enemies, even though that might be advantageous. So, but who says that that's not in the long term? What's the best, the most evolutionarily successful?
You mean being compassionate or something?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Christian morality is what gives us this. It's interesting because I can say you brought up causal direction, but I can bring up this. It's like what you're operating off, what you're presupposing is a bunch of Christian morality. It's kind of built into our social framework. So like the things that you think just are like, oh, the cultural byproducts, that no, those are Christian values that were built into our culture that we didn't get for free. We had to fight for, because we, as Christianity was coming up under Rome, it's Rome's thumb, right? Rome had completely different values. It valued glory and honor and strength and power and so on, conquest, right? That was the way of the world. Very aggressive, very competitive, and successful to a degree. But like the reason why our world is not like that anymore is because those values destroyed their culture, and then the Christian values took over. And the reason why we think now, we kind of just take it for granted that forgiveness is a good thing, compassion is a good thing, meekness and humility are good things. Those are Christian values, and none of those, like humility and meekness, those aren't evolutionarily successful, I don't think, or at least they're very likely not to be.
I disagree. I have no trouble seeing them as I have no trouble seeing, for example, that having a population where some people are meek and some people are fierce, or that in the end is a successful combination. And I feel like you sort of pulled the whole conversation into something different, and I'm not very.
That's totally fine. Feel free to pull it back to wherever. I'm just going through my thoughts here.
I don't believe in that clear narrative that you're saying. Like, of course, Christianity had a big part, but like, I don't know much, but I know enough that people disagree with you on how clear that narrative is. And whether those moralities actually were purely Christian or were also found in other cultures, and also whether they can be said to be found in the Bible, or whether they maybe they evolved in the Christian congregation, not because of the Bible, but despite of it.
Yeah, that's totally possible and plausible and open. You would need some way to explain away what I'm saying, of course, and that I'm totally open to that. But I'll tell you where I'm getting this. I'm getting this from Augustine in his City of God. And he, of course, thinks that the Christian values are superior to the Roman values, but he's not the only philosopher to observe this distinction. Nietzsche, an atheist, also makes the same observation. He's going to call them the Greco-Roman values, and then versus the Judeo-Christian values. And for his part, Nietzsche loves the Greco-Roman values because they're strong, right? Like he loves strength, honor, glory, and conquest. Like that. And then to be meek and humble, that's weak, right? So
slave morality.
Yeah, so he's going to detest the Judeo-Christian values, but he doesn't disagree that that's what Judeo-Christian morality is.
Yeah, but I also won't say I espouse all of the Judeo-Christian values. Like I think, like I said,
which one would you not agree with? Let's say.
I think mostly I disagree with the absoluteness of it. Like you should be as meek as possible, or as whatever. Yeah,
I'm not sure if it holds to that, but go ahead.
Yeah, you can probably interpret different ways, but I don't remember. I just remember that I've been like rewriting, and because I used to be Christian, and I find I disagree.
That's totally fine. Yeah.
But to bring it back, I don't see like where does it all become obvious to you?
Well, I think here's what I would say, because of those three options I gave, where morality must be grounded, and these are, to me, as far as I can see, I'm open to being wrong, I'm fallible, that these are exhaustive options. It's either got to be evolutionary, biological. Number two, it's got to be social, cultural, or number three, it's got to be transcendent. And I think most atheists, if you've heard me in the past few videos, you've heard me say this, most atheists are going to obviously reject that third one because they think that entails God. It doesn't necessarily. You can be a Platonist and accept transcendence. But they'll reject that, and they'll mostly go to 1 and 2 and say, oh, evolutionary, biological, or social, cultural. And I think that there are problems with both, and that these problems aren't obvious to the people who are endorsing it. And I think it's obvious that they have problems. So clear about what I'm saying that is obvious. I think that it's obvious that they have problems. And I think that those problems, I would even go so far as to say, and this is probably what I said earlier in the stream, that I think it's obvious that those problems do in those other options. But, so we just look at...
Did you bring up those problems with me now?
No, one of them I did. Yeah, the idea of the fact that certain evolutionarily successful behaviors are not necessarily moral. And I brought up the other one as well, like Germany saying that, Nazi Germany, if they endorse something socially, culturally speaking, that would just be, well, not a good thing. And it would require you to step back and say, well, if I'm saying that that's not a good society, that entails that I'm using some other standard above and beyond society and culture. So that would do away with society and culture as being an option for grounding morality. I'm looking at something beyond it. So
I feel like your grounding is becoming multiple things. It's like, is it like a pure causal description? Or
I think it's just an answer for, this does get into
normativity, or...
I forget what the author is, the metaphysician who talks about grounding. But in a kind of lay terminology, the way I'm using it, probably just means something like, where does morality come from? Like, where do we get our moral standards, let's say? Do we get them from our laws? That would be social, cultural. Do we get them from biology and evolution? That would be the first option.
Yeah. But is it purely like a descriptive thing, or is it like the source of its normativity?
No, it would be the normativity, right?
Yeah.
And it would be what yeah. So I know you said you just want it to be descriptive, but I don't think that fully encapsulates what I'm trying to say with grounding. Yeah.
Yeah. So in that case, I think I would say that you don't need grounding.
How do you get people to do what you want them to do then? Like to follow, let's say, follow the rules.
How do you do it? I'm sure.
Well, I have grounding, and I have enforcement, and I have like normativity. But you're saying I have no normativity for your position. You say there's no normativity here. There's just description. Okay, well, where do you get the normativity then? Why ought they to do what? Or is this just no normativity whatsoever?
Like the force of the. If you look, I feel like if you look at the normative force of morality, it just it evaporates if you look too closely. Like the only force that you have is like rhetoric and what do you call it? Like when a whole big group of people move in the same direction, like
that group think.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
It's like basically like psychological, and it's all like intangible, and it's all in the way you present it. So using like talking with as if objective morality is true is what matters, is where the force is. It's not whether it's actually true, it's whether you talk as if it is true or whether you believe it is true.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is what you get in Men Without Chests as well. In the book, they're talking. Lewis is talking as if, and I see the time, but Lewis is talking as if objective morals are necessary to bring up the youth in a good way, or something like that.
Yeah. He gets into the normative stuff there. Yeah.
Yeah. What I feel is actually like making an argument for is, believing in objective morality is what counts. It's not whether they are true, it's whether you
I see. Yeah. I see. Yeah, I see your point. Yeah. Well, here's what I'd say, and I'll let you have the last word here. I think that if atheism is true, you're absolutely right. there is no enforcement to morality whatsoever. It's all descriptive. Because why would I say it? Because I don't think the biological can ground it. I don't think that the social cultural can ground it. I think these are just things that we agree upon, for utility's sake or something like that. An absolute agreement. But if God does exist, there is an enforcement. There is a creator and lawgiver of the universe and final judgment. And in the moral natural law that he set forth, that brings about natural consequences, as I mentioned before. But that you would, it's almost like but if you don't presuppose that strong metaphysical presupposition, then I'm totally in agreement with you. There's no way to ground enforcement of morality whatsoever. And that normativity does disappear, I think. Yeah. So I'd agree with you. But anyway, last word here.
Yeah. I had a thought. Like the judgment of God. It is an enforcement, but it's like a post hoc enforcement. It's a threat of an enforcement. So I still think that counts as rhetoric. But yeah, you can pick whatever apart after I leave.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah,
really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Oyvind, I always appreciate. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for coming on, and I hope to see you again. Yeah, always appreciate when you're here.
Thank you.
All right, take care.
You later.
All right, bye-bye. All right. So, one thing I will, that was a great discussion. And one thing I will add, I won't pick them apart. Oyvind, I'm not that dense or unkind or something, but I will say this, you're right about the post hoc and the after the fact sort of punishment there. But I also think in the great spirit of God, it's not just judgment, it's also love. So this would also drive behavior. And so if God is love and loving, of course, you might think as an atheist, you're going to think, well, how do you get that love? How do you access it? And so on. You're going to think, well, God doesn't exist. So, it's just you believing about the love. That's totally understandable. I know what it means to inhabit that mindset. So I definitely sympathize with those rejoinders, but this would be, logically speaking, an answer. There's not just going to be a final judgment, but caught up and inspired by the love of God, that you would be driven to do the things that are loving towards others, and so on and so forth. So yeah, this could go back and forth a lot, and I really appreciate having him to push me on these things. So I see Ita's here. I'm really glad you're here, but just want to say hi to a couple people that I didn't say hi to yet. Good to see you, Kinetic. I'm not sure if I met you before. Diogenes. I don't know. Yeah, Diogenes, was he? I don't think was he the laughing philosopher or the happy philosopher? I can't remember. But and then I don't know much about his philosophy. And then Mary, good to see you. And then of course the other people who come in as well. Good to see you, Neo Establishment. Good to see you, Sevens Pattern. And good to see you, Ita. So I'll bring on Ita here, and then get going on the timer. But yeah, good to see you again. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks. How you doing?
Good. Let me start it again. Yeah, I'm good. Can't complain. I think things are going well. I don't know if you were here when I was talking about how the channel is going to be going and so on. Maybe you can go back and watch that, or you can just don't care or whatever. It's just like you'll see it when you see it.
No, I mean, I'd like to hear, like, obviously,
good.
I know you've said, sorry if it's completely wrong, but I remember you mentioning it was the live previous that your wife losing her job, and so you're helping with that. So I don't know if that's affecting you.
I am.
Sorry, sorry if you said that in the beginning, because I've only joined recently.
That's totally fine. Yeah. So she's looking for jobs like crazy. I think she's up to maybe 15 or 20 that she's applied to so far. She's on it. I also am applying for jobs. I'm thinking, I love academia, but being only an adjunct, I'm like, I could make more, certainly with a doctorate and just exploring what that might look like. I was building a resume last week and looking for jobs and stuff. Who knows what'll come of it? Maybe nothing, but
outside of academia.
Yeah. I figure now is as good a time as any, because you almost like need these moments in your life to kind of be unsettled and jostled out of routine. And so with her being laid off, it's like, well, maybe I could think about this. We're in a good enough spot that we're not like scrambling or in crisis mode or anything, but it's one of those like, hey, I could make a change if, my life could go down this other path. So that's kind of how it's going for me. But anyway, how are you doing?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm still thankfully got my job. I mean, it's not easy for people generally out there, whether it's in the US or UK or I guess globally. So yeah, just thankful I can, keep my job. I still have my job and everything. So
good.
Yeah. So I mean, I hope I pray for that your wife's gonna find
thank you.
The next ideal job for her, and you can move on to something else as well if you.
I'd like to take the pressure off her because she's been the breadwinner for a little while, and she's getting to that point where she's like, yeah, it would be nice to. She got laid off with USAID because they shut it down.
Yeah, I remember
so she had severance. She had, we were fine, but she spent about 4 months looking for a job. Spent about 4 months at a new job, and then all that was remote. She was at home all that time. It's like 8 months at home, and she's like, I kind of like being at home. It'd be nice not to work. And I was like, hold up, retirement's a long way off. But she's starting to think that, and I'm like, maybe I can afford her, that opportunity if the time arises, if the opportunity arises to let her have the pressure off and me be the breadwinner if I can find something. So pray for us if you think about it.
Yeah, no, I'm sure you will. I mean, because I remember back in the day when I was thinking of should I go and move on to the PhD, but when I saw even just the pages for PhD students and then what kind of the postdocs are scrambling with, I was just like, because I was obviously thinking I want to have children at some point in the future. So I was
That's
like,
wise of you.
Well, it's just I came from I guess I came from Nigeria, so West Africa. So it's because it's a more dire straits people in generally. Because even if you're doing well, like if you're still surrounded by all this abject poverty. So I guess it puts a certain mindset. It's like, okay, I'm gonna have to pick money in this case. So and to be fair, I wasn't too good at lab work, so I didn't want to. But I picked the wrong degree, to be honest. Sorry, go on.
I don't regret that I did all I did and I studied and everything, but you're right. It is not a lucrative path to be a professor. And it's very rare. I think last statistics, and this was about 5+ years dated statistics I saw, were that only about 25%, at least in the US, 25% of jobs are now tenure track. So
wow.
So it's all postdoc and adjunct, and it's like it's a risky roll of the dice if you're trying to find a tenure track job. And I actually did have one, because my ex divorced me. That's a long story that I haven't told yet. During the pandemic, and I had to move cross country to follow my son. There's no way I was going to keep my career, so I basically gave up my career to do that. So
sorry to hear that.
Yeah, that's all right. It's in the past now. It's been like 5 years or so. So thankfully. Much better place. Anyway, what do you want to talk about? I'll start the timer here.
Oh, yeah. I mean, one quick question. If you had any idea before I go to the main stuff is, like canonization in the Catholic Church, Eastern Orthodox. Have you seen whether any scholarship or you've spoken to someone like knowledgeable or a scholar that has seen if there's any link between like canonization and deification in pre-Christian antiquity? Like, I'm especially thinking like the Roman emperors. Have you seen anything about that?
I have not. No. That I'd probably look in like religious studies stuff. I don't think any Christians are going to be doing that work. I would imagine if people are trying to make that link, the motive for that would be to draw a comparison to them to kind of lessen the importance or to kind of explain away, maybe in a naturalistic way, how that practice got started. So I'd expect to see that in like a religious studies department or something like that. But no, I'm not aware of any particular research.
Okay, fair enough. No, I just thought it just came to mind earlier. So I just thought because I just happened, so you're gonna have to call today. So
I will say real quick before we move on, I will say that early, I do know about this. Now we have a very formal process. There's a whole cause for canonization process. And you need a lot of paperwork, and it's a lot of witness testimony and all that, as far as you can find it. But in the early days of Christianity, it was just if it's just like it wasn't a formal process and it was done by what was called a cultus or a cult following, not a cult, but like a cult following.
Right.
Basically, if they had that and that they had like a regional practice that had built up around their veneration of a certain saint, then that would be almost sufficient. And then I think maybe a couple of like administrative checkoffs in the Vatican or somewhere in Rome, because the Vatican didn't exist yet. And then they'd be like, okay, now that person's a saint, we just acknowledge that. But I think this process has been around now for a good 500-600 years at least, the process we have now, and it's developed. But yeah, in early Christianity, like it was just canonization just by cultist following or something. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
If that helps at all, I don't know.
No, I mean, yeah, just thought, I mean, obviously, one, when I get a chance, I'll look into it. But I just thought if you've ever heard anything, but yeah, just out of curiosity. Yeah, the main topic I wanted to discuss is actually quite, in a way, I guess, somewhat topical, is because I mean it's bonfire night here in the UK, so obviously Guy Fawkes and
Guy Fawkes, yeah.
So I mean,
V for Vendetta. I did not know it was today.
Yeah, it's today here. So I mean, I can hear fireworks.
Remember the what if no 5th of November? Yeah.
5th of November, the gun. Yeah, that. But this was about actually. I mean, we're going a bit farther back in time because there was another person that got executed for being, I guess, treason to the state, and I was Socrates. So I want to specifically talk about Socrates' trial. But I think first I just wanted to know, like, what's your opinion of more just about like obviously the verdict that they came with, that they executed him. Like, what's your general thoughts on that?
I think it was definitely trumped up charges and that he didn't deserve it. And the only thing, I mean, I've taught on this, it's been a while, but the only real charges that they formally charged him with were of atheism. He wasn't atheist, clearly. He believed in the divine oracle at Delphi and the god at Delphi, who was Apollo, clearly. So, I mean, clearly not an atheist. And he believed in, and they charged him with corrupting the youth. And it's like, if he's corrupting the youth, I certainly is probably corrupting the youth as well. So there's also a trumped up charge. Yeah.
Okay, because I think I'd like to give a bit of pushback on that,
okay.
If you've taken that. So I think I'm just going to try and summarize. So basically, so there's I guess the key word there is that Greek word nomos. So it's the custom or law, isn't it? It's that Athens and I guess would be in other polis. It would. So what I guess my point would be is that considering the backdrop of when that happened, so it had been just Peloponnesian War had just happened and Athens had been defeated, and then Sparta had installed the 30 tyrants, which actually featured some of relatives of people related to Socrates. And so it was I guess Athens was kind of in a heightened state generally. So when it came to kind of Socrates' trial, because he had been linked to, like, for the Critias and the other person on the 30 tyrants, and then he was being accused of very much so with the introducing new gods.
Yeah.
So with the daimon, so he was basically accused of undermining the nomos of the state. So which I guess was baked into the Athenian constitution and framework. So my thinking was then that, and then the corrupting the youth was, for instance,
as a result of that.
Well, because there were some people like Alcibiades who actually colluded with Sparta against Athens, and then obviously you could say Plato as well, because he was quite anti-democratic. If you go from his dialogues, that was another. We had these Socratic circles, which were undermining the state pretty much. So what I would say is not necessarily that it was the right thing to do, but it was maybe justifiable in the context of everything what happened. So I don't know, just that kind of something. What do you think?
That is super interesting. I have not heard that. I know there's always a little historical biographical information before you read every dialogue or something, but and there's certainly editors who include information like that they think is valuable, but I've never heard the case actually been made like this. Maybe I would have if I'd read those things, I didn't mean to say, but yeah, that's super interesting. This would, I think, bring a lot of like real life kind of humanness to the situation, and then like, I will say this is a bit related, that I often have students, and I don't think I'm alone in this among philosophy professors, but I often have students who think Socrates is a bit of a jerk, you know, or that he's kind of toying with people on purpose. But I don't share that intuition. I think that he was genuine in his exploration of things and questions and so on. So I don't see him as an instigator or provocateur necessarily, or see him, at least as he's portrayed, right? We just have to take Plato's word for it. I don't necessarily see him as somebody who was really solely interested in what the state was doing necessarily. I guess this might be a pushback. But then again, he's not a bumbling idiot, and certainly he knew what he was doing. Maybe he just knew the risk and he did it anyway. You know what I mean? But I don't know. I hadn't thought much about it.
I guess my thing regarding that, so not that he wasn't giving the state any pushback or trying to undermine it. But I guess, I mean, obviously this is all coming from Plato, because Socrates, as we know, didn't leave anything behind. But I guess expert philosophers like yourself have tried to see which of the dialogues are actually showing Socrates' real viewpoints. I guess this is always an ongoing debate. But I guess in some of them, where, well, let's just say the Socrates that Plato is presenting is talking about like, the using the ship analogy, that you want like a captain that's capable to steer the ship, not just everybody steering the ship. So that could be seen as a criticism of democracy. And if that was actually Socrates' view, that could be one way when he was in those Socratic circles, was then spreading anti-democratic viewpoints. So
it's true.
Corrupting to youth standpoint.
Didn't he think that democracy was the second to lowest form of government?
Yeah, I think
something like that.
I think that was in. Wasn't that in? But I think Aristotle said something about that as well. Didn't he say that democracy was a? Because I think Plato did mention, because in the Republic he does talk about like democracies and those, but I can't remember how he probably ranks democracy low anyway.
It's kinetic here says philosopher kings aren't exactly democratic. Yeah, and the philosopher king, he obviously is advocating for. But I thought he saw as the oligarchy is higher than democracy, and then I don't want to say.
I think
anarchy.
Right.
I don't think it was anarchy that was. It might have been the lowest form, but it was some sort of like corruption that was lower than democracy, and the democracy is like the second to lowest or something. He did not have a very high view of it at all.
No, because
which I kind of agree with him. Like that's the thing though. He had reasons that I agree with. Like people are supposed to vote so long as they're ideally informed and well informed to make these decisions, and they care about the issues. And like I saw this clip there was some African or Indian guy. I can't remember what the clip was, but he was like, the people, government for the people, but the people are stupid. It's like, yes, you're right.
I guess that's what I guess Plato himself was wrestling with, isn't it? Like whether everybody can, because I think initially in Plato, I guess it's more Plato's view maybe, but he thought like everybody could be taught like philosophy, and then everybody could be capable of, running the state in the way, like participant state. But I guess later he became more skeptical of that, if I remember right. So I guess that's more Plato's view, I guess, than maybe Socrates.
I remember Plato having certain standards for philosophical learning. He did not think, if I recall correctly, that children should be taught philosophy at a young age, which is kind of sobering.
Adults.
But then also, I think he and Aristotle both reserved contemplation for like people who could actually do it. I mean, ideally, for Aristotle, like given your human nature, that would be a very dignifying thing, and that something that every person as a human being should strive for. But also, they had like these real stratification views of society. Like not everybody was going to be somebody who could sit in leisure and think philosophically. So it's a more realist position as well. Dignified, you're human, you could do that, but in reality, realistically, you're not going to do that. And so I think that you're only at best going to have an oligarchy or a kingship or something like that. Yeah, it's not going to be a democracy.
But wasn't Plato's issue kind of in the Republic? Because I mean, because someone of a philosophical bent would want to, contemplate, I guess, in his think and contemplate the forms. But because in the Republic, isn't it that when he's using the allegory of the cave, the person who's obviously the philosopher king or philosopher that's gone into the sunlight and been, exposed to the forms, he then comes back into the cave. So he almost seemed to indicate that he wants that you should come back and then engage in politics to try and convince what's the right way to, because you have that knowledge of,
I'm not sure. You would know this better than me, perhaps, because I didn't realize if this is true. I didn't realize that the person coming out of the cave and coming back was supposed to be the philosopher king. Is that actually right?
Well, I'm not sure. Well, I think
I suppose by extension, if you can infer basically, like if somebody who's going to be that enlightened and you want them as your leader, that would be the guy who comes back. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess, that was, I'm not sure necessarily it's the philosopher king or kings themselves, but someone obviously who's already been able to appreciate the forms and then would come back into the cave.
Yeah, so I guess that would be sort of his initiative and his impulse, but again, the way he described how he was treated, the way Plato described him, it's like maybe that's what he would want to do and would be right for him to do, but being, again, just realistic about it, nobody's going to listen.
Yeah, that does seem to be the case because I think that,
and so it might be an argument against democracy. You know what I mean? Again.
Yeah. Well, it could be. And maybe it is part of that thing that they should come and lead, but they shouldn't. They should try and change it from a democracy to something, I guess, more of an aristocracy of some sort. Yeah.
This is funny because my wife, when she was working for USAID, and I would challenge her on this because she's like, yeah, we're spreading democracy around the world. And I was like, hold up, do they want democracy? First of all, it's funny because it's like a euphemism for like, we're helping people or we're getting in people's international affairs or something, as Americans, form relationships. You got to be diplomatic and so on. But it's funny. It's like, we're spreading democracy. It's all in good, goodwill, good bona fide sort of attempt there. But I would challenge her. I was like, what? Plato, by the way, didn't think democracy was the best form of government, so why would we want to spread that? But yeah, I just find it really, really funny.
Yeah, it's actually interesting because we've got some people. There's been some individuals here, like richer individuals that they've been complaining here that UK is going to, it's massive decline and everything, and they've moved to places like Dubai, which I guess is an emirate. So that I don't think it's a democracy or even a constitutional monarchy.
No,
or anything.
I don't think so. No.
Yeah. So it's interesting. And then they say, well, because I've seen some of these more, the more popular figures that then give interviews and say, oh yeah, they love it here. Like everything's safe, everything's good. It's much better than the UK.
Yeah.
So is democracy always the because it doesn't seem to bother you too much as long as you've got certain things ticked off.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Because I think the problem with democracy is it's almost like a false promise that everybody's equal. But when it's really worked out, it never works like that. It's almost like with socialism. Hey, let's promise everybody's going to be equal income in this case. But it's like it never works out like that. There will always be people who are at the top. Same with democracy. There will always be oligarchs, really, but not a meritocracy. So it's almost like if you were to go and join an emirate or a monarchy or something, it would just be like a humble admission that we know not everybody is going to be equal, and so, we weren't going to be equal under these other systems, but at least we can admit it. And as long as we have a good leader, I think what people are afraid of is that if you were to have a monarchy, it'd be not a beneficent monarch, not a benevolent monarch. And then that's what the fear is. But if you had a really good king, somebody who would be a philosopher king. The closest I can think of is probably Marcus Aurelius to being a philosopher king.
Yeah.
Maybe a close second is like King Alfred, first king of the English, or maybe he wasn't, but he was like the father of the first king of the English, the king of the Saxons, last king of the Saxons. And there was some, I think somebody in Norway who is like a saint. Norway or Sweden, who is a saint, Saint Olaf or somebody who would
Saint Olaf.
Who would be another good example of a philosopher king. But yeah, other than those examples, like you're hard pressed to find somebody who would actually be a really good king, and so I can understand their reticence and caution with respect to let's have somebody rule us. That's why we have all these no kings protests here. You guys, did you have any of those over there?
No, I mean we've got a king, so,
right? Yeah, you can't really.
I mean it's a constitutional monarchy, so
yeah,
which I do find a bit strange sometimes, because I mean yes, it's effectively a democracy, but there's still taxpayers are still footing, a family who's they pass their thing as a hereditary kind of thing. So it is interesting to see. But
connects us here. That's real. We have a bunch of private kings now. Yeah, in some respect, I could get that. It's like the oligarchs, right? You have these people who are rich and run the government and so on. But it's funny because this did happen in Canada, and Canada is like still it's an independent country, but like still has Queen Elizabeth or King Charles or whoever on their currency and so on.
Yeah, so a lot of the Commonwealth.
Yeah, it's a Commonwealth country, so though independent, and so it's funny they're like no kings, because they're so close to the U.S. They're in solidarity with us, I suppose. But it's like it's funny because it was ironic.
Could you just elaborate a bit, like the no kings thing? So is that just something like anti-Trump kind of protest generally?
It's what it was, yeah. I didn't care for it, honestly, it really was like a AstroTurf campaign. You know what that is? Like it's like funded. It looks like grassroots, but it's not.
AstroTurf.
Yeah, so fake grass AstroTurf, and so it really was. You had all these people out in all these different cities. It looked very very organic, although it wasn't. And they were complaining about Trump as being king, yet if you were like, so we have no literal kings, obviously. So if you were to say that to them, they'd be like, yeah, well, we mean king in this sense. And it's like, okay, well, what sense? Well, he's doing this stuff. Oh, you mean like other presidents did? Like Obama deported more people than Trump has so far, So like, it's like, it just seemed really silly to me, well-funded, but very silly. And I saw this one guy who's like, yeah, I hear about, people wanting to do another protest on November, I guess this weekend or something. And he was so funny. He was like, we need to pace ourselves because we got 3 more years of this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, I just found it as well funded, but silly.
Oh, fair. Actually, as time is running out, let me just circle back kind of to antiquity. But mine is just, going along with that, Socrates breaking the customs, the nomos, whatever. I was just thinking, because I don't actually know much about the sophists, but from the little bit I did see, they seem to be doing the same kind of thing. So undermining the convention of the traditional convention, and like undermining the relationships between, I guess, parents and their children with the way they went. So I guess wondering, like, because I know like Aristotle speaks very, is very negative about them. But do you think the sophists, do you think they just get a bad rap because of people like Plato and Aristotle, because of their influence?
Well, I'll tell you, trained as a philosopher, I'm trained to not like the sophists because they were essentially professional rhetoricians who got paid, whereas, well, Socrates did his stuff for free, and they were interested more in, as rhetoricians, winning arguments and teaching people how to do that. It'd be like, selling a book. It's almost like I would see them as like modern day sellouts. Like I will write a book on how to win arguments. Whereas Socrates, I looked at as somebody like who was actually interested in pursuing virtue. And even if he, bothered a few people, he would be, that would be his goal. So like seek virtue and seek knowledge and understanding and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm not keen on the sophists. Of course, it would depend on who you're talking about too, because there's such a disparate group of people. First among them, I would just first think of Protagoras, and of course, not all the sophists as a group, left writings or are remembered by name. But yeah, they would just be rhetoricians, and Protagoras himself would be a relativist. So yeah, knowing those things about them, I'm not one to really, care too much about what they had to say or find so much value in them. Yeah.
Yeah, because I guess I'll just leave the last thing, and you want to respond to that then, any first one. But I was thinking of the sophists, because I don't know much about them, but because I'm thinking like at Plato and Aristotle and like, so obviously they were aristocratic, so they had the wealth to to engage in philosophy for no fee. But I was wondering, for some of those sophists, were they like aristocratic themselves, or were they from lesser means? So they maybe they actually did produce some philosophical works, philosophy that just didn't survive, but they used some of the rhetoric and whatever to, I guess, to be able to live. Because I guess someone could, I'm not trying to say to you, but I guess someone could level accusations to people like professional academics such as yourself, that you're getting paid to do that. So I was just wondering if there's anything to that.
Yeah, I'll say this and I'll let you close. So so I hadn't heard of that about the aristocratic stuff, but it does make me wonder, like, if they were doing really good work philosophically speaking, and then just use this to make a buck, it remind me of David Hume, because he had at the time one of the most popular books, and it wasn't on philosophy, it was on a history of England, and it was standard history of England. And that's what made him not wealthy, but that's what made him, his income. He didn't really make much money off his actual philosophy, what he's remembered for. So could very well be. I don't know, it's speculative, but it's possible. And it's very possible, like, propaganda is like driving our modern day perception of these people. It's been so long,
Yeah, no, thanks for that. That was interesting about the David Hume. I'll have to check that.
I've not read his history of England, but I hear it's good. So
I actually thought he was like somewhat wealthy, or he was bankrolled. So I didn't actually realize that. But anyway, thanks for that. Sorry, I
absolutely.
got a bit sidetracked from the trial to
that's all right.
No kings and everything, but that was very interesting.
Of course. All right. So thanks for showing up, and you're welcome back anytime. So good to see you. And see you next time.
All right. Bye-bye. Thanks.
Another person I just remembered was Aristotle. Aristotle himself, I suppose he was aristocratic, but he was the son of a physician, and the physician was the physician to the king of Macedonia. I believe it's King Mentis or Mintis or somebody like that. Amyntas, I think, the second. That's and so you're free to wonder if that might have influenced some of his thought. He certainly got bankrolled in some sense, but you might think, well, that look at the Renaissance masters; they were also bankrolled. Did that affect their production or quality or anything like that? And of course, we know of them as like the masters. So I'm just going to get a couple of comments here. I see Joe is here. Cheers, Dr. McAllister. Let's pray for our leaders, especially newly elected ones. Yeah, we just had an election yesterday. A lot of local elections, like the big ones really were like, aside from like ballot measures in Texas and California, which were always big, but we had a big one, New York City mayoral, America City, right? That was a big race. And then the governor of Virginia was a big race as well. Says that they carry out fairness, justice, and strive for the common good of peace and flourishing. Yeah. Good to see you, Joe. I don't know if you're still here, but good to see you. Joe was one of my my seminarians. He's studying for the Catholic priesthood. Really great guy. He was one of my students at St. Mary's here, so in Baltimore. So yeah, great. And good to see you. So, all right, so I'm going to take these in order in which you appear. I see Eastern Thomist is in studio and New Altside's in the studio. So good to see you both. I'll bring you on, Eastern Thomist, if you're ready. And then we'll just jump in here and get started. What do you want to talk about?
Yeah, so I was hoping to talk a little bit about the kind of controversial document that came out from Victor Fernandez about the co-redemptrix doctrine. So I guess, just a couple questions. So, number one, it seems like this is more of a disciplinary measure as opposed to a doctrinal measure, wherein, it could be overturned by another pope. Maybe it won't, but I'm just saying hypothetically it could be. Because I remember during the Nestorian crisis, the church actually banned the term Mother of Christ. Because, not because it was a bad term, but they did it temporarily because people were using that to try and weaponized that against people who said Mary was the mother of God. They
Yep.
tried to say, oh no, she's the mother of Christ, not the mother of God.
Yes.
So, I know there's that. And then also, I was kind of interested in your feelings on the term. I know, I don't know if you ever read Father Cornelio Fabro, but he writes a lot about the principle of participation. And he writes about, one of the key themes of Aquinas is basically the idea that, men can be called good or wise, not on account of their own goodness or wisdom, but in as much as they participate or they derive their being from God, they derive their goodness or their wisdom from God in the act of being. And I was wondering if you kind of saw some, like, if that, kind of principle of participation could be applied to the co-redemptrix, at least the idea,
okay.
if not the title.
Yeah. Let me set the stage here so everybody knows what we're talking about. I'm going to share screen on this news release here from the Vatican. So this comes from vaticannews.va, which is in the Vatican. The title of the article is called Doctrinal Note on Marian Titles, Mothers of the Faithful, Not Co-Redemptrix. And certain headlines have been a little bit misleading because they've said, hey, Catholics aren't allowed to use these titles for Mary anymore. The titles in question really are redemptrix, co-redemptrix, and mediatrix, which are Latin words. So they mean basically co-redemptor and then mediator. Specifically, she's called mediator of all graces. Now I will say this for a point of clarification, because a lot of Protestants are looking at this and they're like, of course she's not a redemptor or co-redemptor. Christ is the only redemptor. Of course she's not the mediator of all graces. Christ does that. And they're looking at this release as like, finally, the Vatican, the Pope got it right. Thank God, it's been so long. They've been in error all these hundreds of centuries or whatever. So, but all this to say, a lot of those news releases and headlines have been a little bit misleading, because this is the actual position of the Vatican. So this is what it says. I'll just read this. The doctrinal text analyzes a number of Marian titles, encouraging the adoption of some of those appellations, and warning against the use of others. Titles such as spiritual mother, mother of believers, spiritual mother, mother of the faithful are noticed with approval in the note. In other words, no problem with those. Conversely, this one, co-redemptrix, is deemed inappropriate and problematic. The title of mediatrix is considered unacceptable when it takes on a meaning that excludes Jesus Christ. However, it can be used appropriately so long as it expresses inclusive and participatory mediation that glorifies. In other words, basically you need to understand the context in which it's used. Similar with Mother of Grace, mediatrix of all graces. Right here. So this is included, mediatrix, well as this. It's not just, hey, this is considered acceptable. They elaborate. No, it's considered acceptable when used in context with appropriate understanding. So all this to say, hey, breaking news, by the way, everybody, breaking news, the Pope said something very Catholic. Like, he didn't change the doctrine on this at all. He's just clarifying language use and making sure that people are being clear when they use certain terms to try to convey the right and proper understanding within the Catholic doctrine of the usage of those words, because they can be misused. They could lead someone to believe wrongly that Catholics think that Mary as mediator, that you don't need Christ, it's just Mary. Like, that would be an obvious theological error. So by tightening the usage around these words, they're not saying don't use them. They're saying be careful when you use them and make sure to convey the proper understanding. So all that to say, that sets I think a good context here. But let's get back to your concern, your question. You brought up some like historical examples and Nestorianism and so on. So with that background there, so remind me of your question.
Well, yeah. So I was just kind of wondering your views on just the subject in general, because I know, when it comes to Nestorianism, the term "Mother of Christ" was banned, but that was a disciplinary measure because there were people going around saying, "Oh, she's the Mother of Christ, not the Mother of God." Obviously, today we look at that and we're like, "Well, Mother of Christ." I mean, even the most fervent Protestant would not, object to that term. But at the time, that was something that had to be done away with because people were weaponizing it.
Right.
But like, would you say that this kind of could be kind of perceived as sort of a doctrinal measure, or would it be more so something that is more disciplinary, where, you know, hypothetically it's just kind of being prohibited because it causes confusion or it causes scandal?
I see this probably as the same thing. It's like to head off misunderstandings. And I'm not aware of anybody in the Catholic Church currently who is using these terms within the Catholic Church, using these terms like mediator and co-redemptor as like misunderstanding Catholic teaching. It's probably coming from the outside that Catholics are being charged with this. So it's probably just cleaning up the language with respect to that. I like, that's an astute observation. And just background here for anybody listening, like that you're right, that they did caution, I don't know if they absolutely outlawed it, caution the usage of Mother of Christ during the Nestorian controversy. Nestorius said basically that no, Christ had a human form and a divine form, and that Mary was only the mother of the human form, because really a human can only be a mother of a human. And denied that Mary could be the mother of God. But Catholic Church rightly, again, said, no, Mary is the mother of God because Jesus, humanly speaking, is, even as a human, is God, both in humanity and divinity. He does not have two natures. It's just, he does have two natures, but it's not two persons. Like, it's still the same person. So, sorry if I slipped there. But yeah, this is all really difficult stuff. So you're right that at the time, the church did maybe even do away with. I'm not sure about my history here. Could have cautioned use or do away with it. In this case, they're cautioning use, but they did so with the Mother of Christ because it was leading people to believe in Nestorianism. Basically, she's just the mother. She's just the Mother of Christ. So I think here, yeah, you're right. It's a astute observation. They could be doing something here just to kind of head off that usage. But again, I don't know of anybody in the Catholic Church who, maybe this is my own ignorance, that is necessarily using this to form some like Catholic heresy or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I suppose maybe you could make the argument that, in some countries like Mexico, there is a tendency.
Yeah, that's right.
Sometimes they'll have like practices in Mexico and other countries like that, where they kind of take some of these sort of superstitious ideas and they sometimes try to drip Mariology in there. Like, I was watching, there's an episode of an Apple TV show where there's this guy who went to Mexico. The guy from the show Schitt's Creek, he goes to Mexico, and they're using all these, like, they're talking about these customs, and they're like, oh yeah, we light this smoke for the spirits, and we lay out this food for the spirits and do all these things for the spirits. And Mary's right here, and it's like, well, that's not Catholic teaching. That's kind of taking some of the Aztec stuff and just kind of putting Mary in there and then just kind of stirring that into a cake batter. So that might be the reason why. Maybe it's some of that.
That's possible. Yeah.
In the West, it's unfathomable. I think in the West, there's more of this kind of enlightened Catholic education mindset where I think no serious Catholic would do that. But I think in other countries, it's more common.
Yeah, that's a good point. You have the problem of having to deal with Christians all around the world and syncretistic practices where they're incorporating elements of whatever's local to them and other religions. So they probably are aware of this at the Vatican. And you're right, Mexico is one of those places. Like, of course, they believe in the Day of the Dead, Santa Muerta, basically the Holy Death, but they make it into like a really syncretistic practice. And it's not an official. Some people get confused about this. We just did have the Day of the Dead on November 2nd, otherwise known as All Saints Day. And many people get confused about this. All Souls Day. They'll think that, that's just an official teaching of the Roman Catholic Church because Catholics practice it. No. It's a syncretistic practice. And insofar as it's only talking about elements of the Catholic Church, that's fine. It's good, all legit. But if they're using like Aztec practices or something that distort the Catholic truth, then obviously it's bad. So yeah, this could be one of them. Maybe it's just my like weirdness about, like, I don't have a, for better or worse, sorry, this is a little admission, I don't have like a special devotion to Mary. I think I have one that's growing stronger, but so I'm not really attuned to like what people see in her, and so my Protestant background is like, obviously she's, not that I don't think she's special, I do think she's obviously special, but so I think I have a right and proper understanding and devotion towards her, but I don't, I guess I'm saying it's hard for me to understand why somebody would elevate her so much to be more than Christ, or not even need Christ, and she would be the only one. So it's like kind of, it doesn't seem possible to me, but that's probably my own, inability to see and process how possible that is. Yeah. But in Mexico, you're right. That seems like something they could be doing, because they do have deep devotion, especially in places where they've had Marian apparitions, like the Lady of Guadalupe, and then and other places in the world, like Lady of Fatima, Lady of Lourdes, and so on. Yeah, they might have like really the devotions that can turn perverse, let's say. So maybe the Vatican's aware of that and they're doing that, but I wouldn't know. Yeah.
Yeah, my thinking is it's either that or it's just an ecumenistic measure, because I know.
Yeah.
In the Second Vatican Council, there's been kind of this attempt to try and spread an olive branch. I think there's been an approach since Second Vatican Council not to change Catholic teaching, to keep Catholic teaching intact, but kind of take different optics. Like, one of the things that Pope Benedict XVI did, and he was considered probably most people I think would consider him the most conservative, or I don't know, trad, if you want to call him Pope of the Second Vatican Council era. One of the things he tried to do is he didn't undo the Catholic teaching on the limbo of infants, but he kind of degraded it a little bit, because he thought, okay, when it comes to dialogue with other religions, maybe this is like something that kind of gets in the way, and it's still there, but it doesn't have to be like talked about as much as certain other things. So I think it could be that. I know one of the things that I was reading about, there's this channel on YouTube called Since 33 AD.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
But he basically made the argument that, you don't technically have to use the title co-redemptrix or mediatrix, but he basically makes the argument that the principle of it is still Catholic doctrine, or still Catholic dogma, because if you go back to St. Thomas and other people like Father Cornelio Fabro, he's an underrated Thomas Dominican author, but he writes a lot about the principle of participation. And one of the things St. Thomas says is part of the principle of participation is when it comes to terms like mediator or savior, redeemer, or things like that, St. Thomas basically argues that it's not wrong to give someone else that title if you preface that person is doing that as a subordinate to Christ, wherein they receive their being or their those qualities from Christ, as opposed to a rival of Christ. So, for example, Paul in the scriptures saying, "Oh, I saved these people." Well, he's not saying, I died on the cross for you. He's saying, through my ministry, through the influence of the Spirit, I did that. And so I think that might be where people come from, because I know St. Thomas, when he writes about the sacrament of confession, for example, there's points where he the priest, I believe, as a mediator in the confessional. Obviously not saying the priest is a rival to Christ. He's saying because the standing in for Christ in the confessional, he's a mediator in that regard.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, that's totally fair. Yeah. And that goes back to that like proper context, proper understanding, so long as it's I think I mentioned this earlier in the stream that like with the lack of catechism in the church today, you may not always be having that context provided. So this might just be like a helpful and instructive note, to people to like remember why we do this. It's a good, Catholic kind of practice. And then it can also, I think probably, I don't know to what degree which is which, but it's also probably also ecumenical in a sense, because the Vatican's always thinking about that. Like not only in Vatican II, the most recent council, they had Orthodox and Protestants, present there in the council, but they've done that for almost every council. They've had, other Christians outside the Catholic Church be present at those councils. It's not voting members, but like almost like Puerto Rico and Guam, like just they're present and they're in party to the discussions and so on. Yeah.
Because I know also, I think I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure Pope St. John Paul II too used the title mediatrix. I don't think he used the term co-redemptrix. But I do remember reading that he used the title mediatrix of graces in a lot of his prayers. And I do know too, though, that then Cardinal Ratzinger was not a fan of it. He was the head of the the Office of Doctrinal Affairs for like 30 years, and he never really liked it. He never went after it, but he was very grateful that he didn't appreciate the term. In fact, I think Cardinal Fernandez, the current office holder of his position, when he came out with the document, he was actually like quoting then Cardinal Ratzinger over and over and over during the press conference afterwards.
That's interesting. Yeah, I didn't see that. Yeah. I've not read the document myself, but just seeing like I've at least gotten past just like catchy or clickbaity headlines, and then Protestants, being happy about it, to notice, oh, there's more to it than this, but I've not actually read the document myself yet.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I think when it comes to Catholicism, it's very easy to blur the lines between, what is a disciplinary procedure and a doctrinal procedure.
And they're not always just going to come out and say that, hey, by the way, we're doing this to discipline these people, and these are what their punishments are, or anything like that. They're not going to say that.
Right, yeah. But I mean, I'll see people all the time that will say stuff like that, and they'll be like, oh, the Catholic Church said this then, and then they reverse the position, and it's like, no, that's practice that changed. A practice isn't a dogma being streamed on high.
I can't think of any point in history where the Catholic Church has reversed its decision on anything. Nothing that immediately comes to mind. It's always been a development, at least framed in that way. And you might think like the Avignon papacy or something, maybe. It's like, no, we're going back to Rome, but that's complicated too. But
and I mean, even then, you still had, people like St. Catherine of Siena, and clearly there was a following that kind of understood that there was some sort of consistency in the church even at the time, that they would be like, oh yeah, the guy from Avignon, he's still the Pope, because there's still a level of, a linear doctrinal kind of understanding.
Are you, by the way, are you an Eastern Catholic in the like Byzantine Rite or something?
Yes, I am an Eastern Catholic in the Byzantine Rite.
Nice, that's awesome. We have one of those churches here in Baltimore. I believe it's like a Cyril Methodius church. I think. Yeah, it's great, man.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, I know they have, they've got a couple. It's funny, in my town there's more Eastern Catholic churches than there are Latin Rite churches.
That's really cool. In DC, outside DC in Sterling, Virginia, there's a church. I really love it. It's called Holy Transfiguration. I believe that's what it's called. It's a Melkite rite. And that's beautiful, man. To hear them chant the Our Father is just like chills, So some beautiful traditions in there. And just for anybody who's listening, don't know what we're talking about. Like, you have the Latin rite, which is like kind of, I guess most people would just think of that as just the standard Roman. It's called the Roman Rite or the Latin Rite, just a standard way of doing Catholic Church. But the Eastern rites are some attempts towards ecumenism and bringing back into the Catholic Church these churches that were maybe broken off and coming back, or maybe receiving traditions that, that had always been there and just kind of elevating those. And I think I want to say there's like up to 14 different rites. The Roman Rite is one of them. The Byzantine Rite's another. Melkite, Maronite is another. So it's a beautiful universality to the church. Yeah.
the Maronite church in my town used to be a Protestant Methodist church, and
Wow.
it got converted. But it's funny because you can see in some of the old stained glass windows, it's just like pictures of the Bible, which
Yeah. Yeah.
But the last thing I'll say is, I went to a Melkite church when I was in Steubenville for the conference, and they had the guy who was there. He was a married Melkite priest, and I guess he was a former Air Force pilot. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Nice, yeah, that's awesome. Well, great to hear from you. Great to talk with you again, and thanks for coming on, and come back anytime.
Appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
All right, anytime. Talk to you later. Bye. All right, cool. That was really terrific. And as you can see, we're always doing things that are very, very different. Sometimes it's a different speed. We'll talk. I'll bring New Altside on here in a sec. Sometimes we will talk about Catholic doctrine issues. Sometimes we'll talk philosophy of religion, or just philosophy of politics, or metaphysics, or epistemology, meta-ethics. It's all over the place. So, let me get to, I see Michael here is back. Good. I'm glad you made it back. I'll be on for probably another 30 minutes. I'll talk to New Altside. And if you want to jump on after, then I'd be happy to see you if you're still here. And I see the rest of you guys are just kind of talking to each other, which is great. Cool. All right. So we're going to bring New Altside in, and I'd love to hear what you want to have to talk about. Yeah. I remember we left off at a different place, and then do you want to continue sort of a conversation there? I love that you always change your name up in the studio.
Yeah, it's my gimmick. It's my thing.
Good. It's good to have it.
We were talking last time. We were talking about gender.
Yep.
And you had some worries about the certain. Oh, let me pull up the specific worries, because I had them written down in a comment on our previous video.
Go for it. Yeah. By the way, whenever I do this, I don't know if anybody knows if I do this. It's not because I'm getting ready to fight. I know it probably looks like that or something. It's because I have a real bad neck and I'm just popping it.
Yeah.
But I can't just sit straight for like a couple hours at a time. But it does look like I'm like, all right, come on, bring it,
Yeah, I'm not sure if you can tell, but my bed quarters aren't exactly the best for my back. So I don't think I'm quite there yet, but let's hope I get a new mattress before I am.
Yeah. Mine's partially hereditary. It's like I got a slip disc and a herniated disc, and like it's blown out. So it's like I will probably eventually have to have a surgery where I have an artificial disc placed in between my vertebrae. It's not a fun thing. So yeah,
it's not ideal, but hey,
it was
I'm glad the surgery exists.
inevitable. My dad had the surgery; it's inevitable. All my brothers have the same issue. So yeah, it just got to live with it. Yeah. But anyway,
that's how life goes sometimes. Oh, speaking of life, I completely missed the beginning, so I have no idea how you're holding up yet.
Oh yeah. So I won't start it yet, but no, it's good. I did mention in a previous stream about my wife getting laid off. So you okay? So you're aware of that. So it's going good. It's it affords me the opportunity to, like, we're not in crisis mode, or we're not hurting or anything, which is really nice. We're in a good spot despite that news, because she got a nice severance from when she got laid off. It's the second time this year, so we're okay. And so it's nothing like, I gotta go work at McDonald's now or something like that. So that would be crisis mode, but so we're totally fine. But I am taking it as an opportunity to look for jobs myself, not because I have to, but I'm thinking, like, man, I'm in academia, but I'm only doing adjunct, and it's doesn't pay that much. I did have a tenure track job, but I left that because this was, like, long story short, my ex divorced me during the pandemic, and, like, I didn't want that at all, but we had a son together. So she moved back on the East Coast, and it's like, well, I can't just have my career and not follow my son. I'm going to follow my son. So I gave up my career, and just kind of like, yeah, well, I'll just do whatever I can. I did find a job, but it's only adjunct, multiple jobs actually. I landed in this one, been here about 3 years. And so anyway, so I'm thinking, well, this doesn't pay well. So I'm looking at other possibilities, just kind of throwing things around. And as far as that goes, and it's not like I'm freaking out about anything, but it's just a nice sort of, hey, maybe this could be a thing. And it'd be relieving some pressure for her, because right now there's a lot of pressure on her to kind of be the breadwinner, and I don't want her to just always do that. So yeah. Anyway, that's probably more than you wanted to hear.
No, I'm happy that we're comfortable with sharing like this. Honestly, I should probably share more. I guess I'm just a little shy with the YouTube audience.
That's totally fine, man. No, it took you a while to even have a camera on, so just share whatever you want or how little you want. It doesn't matter to me.
I appreciate that.
All right.
Yeah. I guess we'll get into the discussion then.
We'll get going. So, I'll set the timer. Go for it.
The last time that we had spoken, you had mentioned 3 main issues that you had, and it was specifically with gender-centric studies. And one of them was rapid growth, so the amount or the speed at which we were growing in this study. The second one was a lack of voices across the ideological spectrum. You specifically mentioned the political spectrum with conservative voices, which it's true, gender-centric studies are primarily left-leaning. And then internal critiques such as you'd cited gays against groomers. I don't know if you can tell. I don't.
You don't like them,
them. I don't believe it or
I'm not surprised. Like a lot of people on the left don't like them, but they are on the left, and so
politically speaking, they are on the left. That doesn't mean I agree with them.
There are people in the LGBT, even the T community, who are advocating for cautious optimism about some things, or just outright kind of rejecting and want to separate the T from the LGBT. Like there's all different voices within it, but they are by and large on the left, and they're in the gay community.
We can talk about any one of those 3 topics. If you have any specific ideas that you want to get into,
I'd add
I mentioned it, or
not necessarily. All those are kind of equally kind of. I was just spitballing at the end of our talk during that, and I'll add.
I got a point right here.
And I'll add one more. Okay, that's fine. Whatever you want to do. And then I'll add one more and see if this entices you. That I think also from a metaphysical standpoint, I just think that there are just going to be 2 sexes. And I said this, I think, after you left, like the whole sex gender distinction arose as a result of Simone de Beauvoir's work. And I just don't buy her distinction. And there's actually a good philosopher by the name of Thomas Bogardus, and he's done some work. He's received blowback from this, but he's over at Pepperdine University in Malibu, and he does really great work on like epistemology and stuff. And he decided to start doing work on this, and he's got philosophical arguments against the notion that gender is distinct from sex. So I need to read more on that. I'm not really up on that. I should read that and then comment that maybe next time.
So I don't really believe in a distinction between sex and gender from an ontological or metaphysical standpoint. I believe in it because mostly from those gender-centric studies, have been given enough empirical evidence to meet my own epistemology, my own standard of evidence. That's what epistemology is, right? It's the amount of evidence you need to believe something.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to make sure we're on the same page here. So yeah, I believe in that sort of thing from an empirical standpoint rather than a metaphysical or ontological one. But I am happy to get into what it means to be a person, or what it means to be oneself. That's ontology, at least my understanding of it, because it is intrinsically linked with identity, which, LGBTQ, etc. We can call it queer if we don't want to use the whole alphabet soup. Because up in Canada, it's even longer. It's 2S LGBTQIA plus. Which is, it's fun. I like that it's longer, but
see, the thing is, once you get to saying that there are so many genders that have to be included. We're not even talking about the identities within the community or the movement, but just talk about genders. Like, then gender risks becoming not a meaningful term anymore. It just, at some point, it's almost as if you're describing a personality, especially if it's something that is just kind of self-identified. It's like, well, I identify as this, I found this to be, and if you, for example, were to come up and be like, I'm this gender that nobody ever heard of, like, people would probably validate that and be like, yeah, I guess you are. Because again, like, who is the arbiter but yourself? And if it's that way, if that's the thing, then gender just risks becoming, if everything is a gender, then nothing is a gender. You know what I mean? Like, so, it's just lost its meaning.
It's inaccurate to say that everything is a gender. I think whenever you refer to that and how there's so many different kinds of genders, you're referring to just like how you can identify as anything and it kind of be considered a gender. I think the most infamous of them was the attack helicopter one.
Oh, yeah.
Which, yeah.
I think it was probably satire, but yeah.
It isn't exactly correct. So anyone who... what we usually say is that gender is a spectrum, in that there is for the vast majority of people, a sort of lean one way or the other between male and female as far as gender goes. And then there is a spectrum between those for anyone who leans anywhere more specific along the line between those two distinctions. But you are correct. The more genders that we have, the less important or meaningful that they're going to be to anyone. And that's kind of the point. It's self-identification. As such, it should only really be meaningful to you. If it affects any part of your life that you're not in control of, that's not a good thing.
Well, let me ask you this.
If it affects the jobs that you get or how you get hired, that's not good. That's discrimination.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I'd advocate for not discriminating against gender. That's just, in the U.S., that's illegal. So, so that's kind of like a non-negotiable. It's just not even. It's just a moot point here. So, with respect to the spectrum, though, it's not just a spectrum between male and female, though, because that's not just the only things that are being included in gender. It's almost like, it's also like demi-gender, demi-queer, sapiosexual, these sorts of things that have nothing to do with male-female. You know what I mean? Like, so the spectrum is not just male-female. It's also, with respect to what you find attractive, with respect to what you like, okay, intelligence, okay, emotional attachment or something. And it's like, I mean, yes, all these relate to love relationships, sure, or relate to the human being, male, female, but like, it's not, like, I would like to believe that it's just a spectrum between male, female. That would make it a much easier sort of discussion to have, but it's not. It's like, so variating off of that spectrum.
I'm trying to find the specific image, because I found one earlier that made perfect sense to me, because I was struggling about trying to understand the spectrum itself. But I can't seem to find it, which sucks. But it is more like a triangle when we say spectrum. So let me try and paint the picture verbally. You can think of a triangle with male on one side, female on one side, and non-binary on another. And this is typically how we understand it. Dead center, if you're not feeling one way or the other, then that's typically seen as agendered. If you're confused about why people even associate with gender, if you're uncertain as to why it's even a part of people's identity and don't feel any specific way as far as your gender expression, that's typically agendered. Non-binary, they don't feel as though they're part of the binary, male and female. They're their own thing. And demi is the middle parts of that spectrum. So demi is like, if you're a demi boy, you're demi somewhere leaning towards boy, or somewhere demi girl, you're leaning somewhere towards girl. I know it's a lot of vocabulary that I'm throwing at you.
Yeah, it's fine. I know all the vocabulary. I'm just
the
conceptual mapping is what I'm trying to grasp here, and I can understand it. Like, I can understand what you're trying to paint visually speaking. I'm trying to conceptualize it in my head such that it seems plausible, and I don't know if it does. You know what I mean? Because like at the end of the day, how many genders would you say there are?
I don't think there's a count. I think that because it's a self-identifying thing and because it's a spectrum, it's an analog that technically means there could be an infinite amount if you want to get like super specific. As far as broad categories, I haven't counted them. I'm sure there's a specific number of broad categories, but I don't think the number really matters. And I've never really found that the number matters to me. I did find an image that could help smooth things out. Let me find.
Well, yeah, you should be able to share screen using the studio thing. Share screen or present.
And now, image file. This is the first time that I am. Why is this not?
It had you upload it, and then you gotta like bring it into that. But,
yeah, it's so funky. Sorry. Allow me
that's all right.
Share the screen instead because I
take
have
your time
my settings will open.
That's all right.
And there it is.
Take your time and
you should be able to view it.
All right, cool. I restarted our time because we're gonna hit the timer anyway. Oh, actually, no. Yeah, you are there. Yeah. Okay, cool. So let me add the stage. Remove that stage. Cool. All right, there it is. Okay, yeah. This is what I was visualizing. Where would demi go?
So
does demi means half, as in like quasi or something like that.
Right. So this is my snippet tool, so I can actually make circles. Check this out. Okay. So this would be this circle that I'm making right here. This would be a gender. Right. So that would be without. Demi would be anywhere in this sort of area.
Okay, but is that demi man or demi woman?
Depends on which you're closer to.
What if you're in the middle between man and woman?
If you're like straight in the middle, I'm not entirely certain what that's called, but I've not met anyone who is like straight in the middle. I'm sure I could find information on it though. That's not where I am specifically, so it's not really what I looked into. Okay. Let me find it. I'm sure I could.
Isn't it weird to have a gender category that just is other?
Well, that's typically what we see in agendered people. So
but hold on. Other is bottom left in the green, but you're saying agender. If that's other, then it would also be dead center, so it can't be both. It seems weird to label it other. I don't know who made this, but yeah.
So other is other or non-binary. If you don't feel anywhere on the rest of the spectrum, because it's so self-identity based, that means that you're likely going to be leaning towards non-binary as far as our understanding goes. We're still a little iffy on this because it's very personal, but this is typically where you see the majority of people who have gender identities will lie. So
to me though, if it's let's think about this. So if you're describing something like a feeling, that doesn't seem like it's like, because this gets into Wittgenstein, who's a philosopher, and talking about language games. If you use a term that nobody else uses, it has no currency in the world. Like, people don't know what it means. Like if I say I'm gender splorgish, like, cool, yeah, that's my gender. Like, it doesn't mean anything to anybody else, and it just means something to me. It's what I'm self-identifying as. Then it literally, I'm communicating nothing by saying this. You see what I mean? And if you have multiple people saying, "Oh, I've identified new gender. It's just unique to me. Nobody else has it, and only I know what it is," then like you're not doing your language community any favors by using that term that means literally nothing to anybody else. Does that make sense? So it's a linguistic problem, and it's a problem because you're not really sharing any information at that point either. Like, where would you put Splorgus on this? I don't know. Maybe I'm the whole thing. You know what I mean? Like I found a new gender. I'm the whole thing. You know what I mean? Like, and if I were to say that to some like gender studies department, if I were to say that to some gender studies department professor, I'm the whole thing, they would be like, oh, you're right. Like, because again, it doesn't mean anything what I'm communicating. If the rules are, I can just identify within myself whatever it is that I think I am, and then communicate that to you. It doesn't have to make sense. Like, that's still allowed. It's not. There's an impasse in between what I'm feeling and what I'm trying to communicate. Does that make sense?
Right.
Like, language doesn't work like that.
I guess, yeah, that's true. I don't really see the problem with it because it's self-identity. It's only supposed to be for you. The only reason why a gender studies professor might take it is for some sort of data to see, what are the typical emotions of people who don't identify with anywhere on the spectrum, because, it's so self-identity based. We can only categorize it wholly as other. If you're not, in any of this triangle. So if you're a man, woman, or non-binary. Apart from that, because there's just no reason.
Well, let's try to get a definition down. So
you're trying to like convey that out to someone, which is totally reasonable to do. It's your own personal experience. You might want to convey what it means to be a smorgasbord gender,
That's a thing though. Like
I like that.
Look, it's a problem in the philosophy of language because I'm making rules for my own language game. It's as if I'm playing a board game all by myself. Only I know the rules. I've invented them, and you don't know anything about it. And then I go and try to tell you, "Hey, I won the color purple when I smelled fear." Like, it's like, that's what it sounds like when I'm trying to communicate. Because you don't know how the game's being played at all. You don't know the rules. So when I'm trying to communicate that to the external language community, it means absolute nonsense. Because why? Not because what I'm saying is nonsense, because I'm not sharing the same language game rules as them, right? So like this whole thing, it's almost as if the whole gender phenomenon thing, revisiting this stuff, is as if they're trying to take the private language game and make it public so that we make it more meaningful. But as of right now, just most people in the world are, you even have a hard time like kind of try to describe this framework. Probably gender studies professors have a hard time trying to describe this framework. So currently it means very close to nonsense to anybody hearing it. And it does sound like you can understand why some people would charge it with you're just making it up as you go along.
Well, yeah, I can absolutely understand why people would say that. The important distinction is that what they're talking about is a very small subsection of the population that specifically categorizes as other. There's a reason why we put this over with the non-binary section, because they don't identify as either a woman or a man. So we usually group them over with non-binary. You are right, there is a sort of language game being played here that's very personal to the person because this is their personal identity. But as far as categorization with the general population goes, we will usually categorize them with non-binary people. And it is also important to recognize that people who typically go with other, that's usually because they are trying to identify feelings that they're not familiar with in themselves. At least that's what the majority of testimonies have been.
Can I ask you a few like kind of orienting questions here? Okay. So
absolutely.
First, what would you consider gender to be? And I imagine you'd say something like, well, it's a felt expression or something like that, felt within the self. But I want to know not just that, like, is it related to sex? And if so, in what way? Or if it's not related to sex, again, because sapiosexual, demigenders, soy gender, all these like other things that are not specifically man or woman or anything having to do with sex, like these extra ones.
Sorry,
I mean,
I've never unironically heard the term soy gender before, and that's so funny.
Yep.
I'm sure there's people out
Yep.
there. You sound tired.
Yeah, I know I'm getting there, but yeah, go for it. Yeah. So what is gender? And let's actually look up. Let's see.
It's interesting because it's self-identity. There's usually no one specific answer to that. Gender will vary as far as its correlation to sex. It typically correlates with our born sex, as far as we know.
Yeah.
Because the majority of the population is cis. I think throughout America, the transgender population is about 1%. I know non-binary is a little bit bigger than that, but it's still a very small minority. So typically, it is linked to your sex, but it's not direct. There is absolutely what was the phrase? Sorry, I'm reading what Wesley just put into the studio chat here. But there's a correlation, but I wouldn't necessarily say that it's a direct parallel. Because sex, that's usually the empirical thing that you are born and assigned with. The gender, though, that is a self-identifier, so it's going to be more geared towards your emotions, which we haven't determined a direct cause for. So I can't tell you if the direct cause has anything to do with sex.
Let me share something here. I'm going to share a different share screen over here. I think it's this one. Okay. So this is what I'm thinking of when I'm thinking of the genders on offer here. And many of these, like, just to take, like, obviously they sometimes have like double meanings, but they seem to involve something involving sex, right? Whatever they mean. And this isn't even all of them, but like when you talk about like bear, leather, twink, pony, rubber, it's like, like, I mean, people in the community are going to know what these words are, but they're going to sound crazy to the people outside the community, of course. You got demi girl, demi boy. These are just the flags. But how does that?
So there is a good way to sort of figure this out. A prefix and a suffix is usually how these terms are separated. Anything with the suffix sexual implies your sexual identity. The community, these are all communities, that's why they're all flags, but your sexual identity is basically like bisexual, you're into both men and women. Asexual, you're not into any specific gender. Demisexual, you are heavily leaning one way or the other, but you can be into some of the other way. Romantic is another suffix, and that's to do with your romantic feelings, typically how you feel towards certain groups of people. You see a woman and you might go, oh man, I want to live out my life with this person, not the same way that you would necessarily do with a man. I myself am polyamorous, so it's a little bit difficult to explain because I don't necessarily feel that. I'm pansexual and polyamorous. As far as, and then there's lesbian, which that's gay, but woman to woman, and then anything that ends with gender, that's our typical discussion.
Right. So here's the thing, though. Not
queer,
only are these communities, though, these are understood to be genders. Every single one of these. I think people have advocated for these actually being genders.
They're identities, but they're not genders. Genders is a specific subcategory of identity. So like pansexual, that's not a gender. Intersex, that's not a gender. Non-binary is a gender. Transgender is a gender. Genderqueer is a gender. But bear, that's not a gender. That's a sex thing. Lesbian, that's not a gender. Twink, that could be an identity.
Okay,
but
this might be a better one then.
That's more of a personal identity.
How about this one? This is just gender.
This is gender. This is gender.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So female and male. I get the feeling that you understand those.
Yeah.
Bigender.
I've heard of them.
Bigender. So the one you said that was demi, but like directly in the middle. That's what it's called. That's called bigender. You feel.
Gotcha.
You feel both.
And a neutroi or neutrois is what? Neutroi.
Oh no, wait, I'm getting it mixed up. Bigender is that you feel both. Androgyne is the center between male and woman.
Look, here's what I want you to do for next time. I need you to take this.
I'm screenshotting this, and I can give you all the.
Yeah, I need you to take this, and I want you to map it onto the triangle. Okay. Like for full comprehensive understanding. Because right now these look like Pokemon to me, the unknowns. You know.
Do you mind giving me the full image? Because some of the names are cropped.
Yeah, they are cropped off, and I don't know why. This is. Let me actually.
Here, let me.
Yeah, these. It says original source unknown, and then it says. Actually, I could maybe perhaps.
You could like post the link or.
This is on Medium. Yeah, I will. These are on Medium, and I see it post on. Yeah, it looks like Reddit. So let's find it actually.
We have a guest here today.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know where that original one is, but I'll find it for you. But currently, this is a Medium magazine article, and I'll give you that link in the chat when we're done. But all this is that here's my worry as well. Not only a linguistic language game concern, I'll just put this away for now. Not only a language game concern, right?
Mm-hmm.
That forces it into kind of a confusion, right? Because all these people who aren't playing the language game and people like you who want to, but you don't really know the rules, like what applies, what doesn't. You kind of, you know some things, but you don't, and you kind of learning, pick up. That's totally fine. That's how learning works. But it's not fine if like rules are constantly changing and we're adding new genders also. And there's potentially infinite genders, you admitted. So it's like these wouldn't even be, this is just getting started. There's that language game.
There's potentially infinite genders in the same way that there's infinite numbers between 0 and 10. You can still understand that kind of correlation, right? It's an analog between extremes, as we pointed out with boy, girl, and then other or non-binary. And as far as it being a language game, the reason why it's its kind of own sector is because it's for people who are not convinced of their own gender. If they're feeling questioning about their own gender and they're not confident one way or the other, then it's there for them. They can go look into this stuff and see, oh, yeah, I identify with this. This list of characteristics, I do this, I feel this way. I'm a little bit confused about X or Y, and as such, I know people who understand my struggles.
Yeah, it would be helpful if it were true that these are real distinctions, but that's my worry, is that it's not true, and that it doesn't map onto reality. Because again, at the end of the day, it's just how you feel. Right. So like how you feel, like I can feel really like my wife doesn't love me, and that's not reflective of reality at all.
So that's not necessarily a linguistic property. That's
that's a different concern. Yeah.
Because it's okay. I think I can next time give at least the empirical evidence that helped to convince me.
Okay.
I can sort of give that next time. And
Okay.
I'll see about the metaphysical. I'll try and look into both sides of the argument because I
Yeah.
haven't really looked into the metaphysical in regards to
Yeah,
that.
I'll put
I'll absolutely do
Tomas
so next time.
Bogardus in the chat, and then I'll share that link with that
Tomas?
Medium article. Another concern, so the language game concern, the internal feeling not necessarily mapping onto reality concern,
Mhm.
and then the third concern is that it risks being just a meaningless thing. Like if I, for example, said hard, I'm just going to use the adjective hard, and I'm going to say that this coaster is hard because it's made of like stone or something or ceramic, but also this coaster is a little hard too. You know, it's softer, but it's hard. Metal is hard. Pillowcases can be hard to a certain degree. They're certainly not zero hard whatsoever. And really just everything is hard to a certain degree in some sense or another. Now I've used the same adjective to describe everything such that it no longer has any meaning. It's not describing anything. So if I take, and we're using gender like this, gender is not just this thing or that thing. It is really just anything you can feel within this area. Then it really risks just describing nothing. Does that make sense? It applies to everything, so it applies to nothing.
Gender doesn't apply to everything, though.
I'm not
saying
saying.
I get what you're saying. I think I understand.
I'll try to.
Like as far as the linguistic concern that you had was, it's to do with the fact that because it is so like it's self-identity, there's no relative use for it for anyone outside of the person.
That's the first, the language game one. You're right.
Right. And because it has no use, it doesn't. I'm trying to connect the dots here. Because it. Sorry, it's confusing trying to understand the other side here.
Yeah. No, it's totally fine. You're doing it. It does take like difficulty to understand the other side. We're near end of time, and I gave you an extra 10 minutes, so we'll close here soon for someone else.
Absolutely,
but
I'll rewatch to try and
do that. And I can be better at it. Yeah, I can be better at articulating this.
20 minutes next time.
That's fine. I can be better at articulating this, so I'll try to as well fashion a better way to present what I have on my mind. So, but this ongoing discussion again, like, man, good on you for actually coming here and wanting to talk about this stuff, because not everybody in your position would, so they would, many people in my position or your position would just like not want to even have this conversation. So I appreciate us having a space to do that. So I really respect that. So I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And thank you for helping to make this a place where we can discuss this and engaging with me. This is fun.
Yeah.
I always come to these kinds of shows to challenge my ideas and, try to convey them out, try to make them make sense, because they make sense up here. They don't always come out that way.
Yeah. No, that's how ideas start. So
but yeah, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
I hope to see you next time, as long as my schedule actually connects. See y'all later.
No problem. I'll put the link in there for you now, and yeah, there's always the replay. So, all right, we have time for one more guest, and I'm not going to go without having Cameron on. Good to see you, man. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good. Yeah. You can rewatch, my updates and stuff, and channel ideas and those sorts of things. But yeah, so far so good. Nothing to complain about. But how's school for you, uni?
It's so tiring, honestly. There's a lot of stuff to do. But it's really fun. The philosophy is amazing. It's really good to learn about.
All right, so you're on here because you always correct me on things, so which I appreciate, which is very humbling for me.
I wasn't correcting you there.
No, not there, but in the past you've been like, oh well, this is actually, you didn't think about this, and so I really appreciate that because you helped me become a better thinker. So but yeah, what do you want to talk about this time?
Well, it was about the irreducible complexity, and I found that really interesting.
Yeah.
Because I do biology and philosophy, so I'm sort of in that space of and I used to love evolution as a kid. That was like so interesting to me. So like, I believe I can't remember what the original claim was of the video that you commented on, but I would like to. I'm guessing you agree with irreducible complexity. How would you flesh that out?
So let me frame this. So for context for anybody listening, so Cameron and I are connected on Instagram. I apparently saw a post I commented on, and I said something about God's greatness and design. I forget what. Oh, it was the heart. It was a human heart that they made a 3D printed model of, but out of kind of rubber, and they unfurled it, and it turns out it had like a helix structure to it, which, you know, even like, for example, like Da Vinci was an amazing artist, and we know some things about his drawings that help us in modern time, but I don't think we knew about its helical structure. So it's really fascinating. And it just, you know, as a reply, I was like, man, God's design is amazing. And of course you come back and you're like, evolution's amazing. And so I was like, well, irreducible complexity, that's all I said. I think you said just evolution. And I said, one word answer, and then I said one word answer, irreducible, two word irreducible complexity, which to the uninformed, irreducible complexity means that it's, for example, like they use the analogy of a mousetrap, that couldn't possibly have formed one component at a time progressively or incrementally. It is necessary that each part must be there together at one time, which supports the idea that it was created and put together at one time, and not gradually kind of adapted to its environment evolutionarily and just formed that way. And examples they give, the analogy would be the mousetrap, but examples in the human body would be the eye, and it might be the heart as well. I'm not sure if that's used as an example, but the eye is a really big one. So yeah, but all that to say, that is from it's often a point that creationists, or at least intelligent designers, will use. In other words, people who don't necessarily buy in evolution. But I will say this, although I did use that, I probably think that, you know, I have no dog in this fight, because I don't really believe very strongly about either side. I know God created the world. That's kind of, I don't know how he did it. I think the evidence for evolution is strong. I don't reject it. You know what I mean? But I think naturalistic evolution is wrong. But theistic evolution's on the table. But again, like, I'm not in these conversations, don't really have a dog in the fight. So if you wanted to come here and like tell me more information about how irreducible complexity was just wrong or something, I'd be interested in that. But I just, you know, it's not necessarily my position. Sorry if that sounds like hedging or something, but yeah. But I do find those conversations very fascinating. But yeah, anyway, that's the setup and the framing of it. But yeah, what are your thoughts on all that?
So if I did just say evolution, I can't remember saying that, but if I did, I apologize, because that's not my position. I think theistic evolution is possible. I mean, I don't think it's either, you know, naturalistic evolution or irreducible complexity. I think God can design through evolution. I guess it would sort of be, what was your issue with the eye, for example, be? So you said like it can't come through like parts, so you can't just have a part and then another part.
That's the argument that intelligent design proponents will say, but I don't know much about the biology of the human eye or the structure of it to know what components they're pointing to within the eye. Like I couldn't even tell you what the parts of the eye are. I know they got a cornea, you got a lens, you got a retina. I know the names of them, but I don't even know what they refer to. You see what I mean? So yeah, but that's the example used in the argument, and that's kind of the extent of my knowledge. I don't know. Yeah.
So I guess what would your issues with non-theistic or naturalistic evolution be as an explanation for like
that?
The design that we see.
Two things: that it's blind and unguided.
Okay.
And so it's just entailed by being naturalistic. There's no divinity overseeing the whole process. And of course, somebody who's a naturalist would be like, of course it's that way because God exists, or of course it's that way because it's brutal. Of course, you know, what good God would oversee such a thing? And but then also, I see evolution as a view as distinct from the question of whether God exists, of course. So I don't marry that. Like, I know some Christians will be like, well, if I'm a Christian, I gotta believe against evolution because God created the world. No, actually, I mean, God created the world. He can do it whatever way he wants. And it's also the case that evolutionary theory is not an account of origins. I know Darwin's book's called Origin of Species, but it's just the origin of each individual species, not origin of all species. It doesn't tell you about first species, something like that.
Yeah, species are necessarily individual. So, yeah.
So I think a lot of people get confused about that, and they're like, oh, yeah, we all started as amoeba or something like that. And that's what evolution says. That's actually not what it says. So that's why I wouldn't believe in a naturalistic evolutionary account, because if it entails that, like, that's actually that's inconsistent with the evolutionary theory itself, that it has an account of ultimate origins. It doesn't. So yeah, anyway, so that's why I wouldn't be on board. And just being a believer in God, I just wouldn't be on board with naturalistic evolution.
Interesting. So there is a division between, I mean, evolution is quite broad. Like, so a lot of the time, the theists will be talking about evolution. They'll be talking about cosmic evolution, but obviously when we mean evolution, we're talking specifically about biological evolution. Right. And that is distinct from abiogenesis, which, as you can get from the word, breaking down the word, bio and genesis, the beginning of life. Those are separate theories. As far as I'm aware, there's no conclusions yet about how life started. There's many different ideas, but there's no conclusions. With the sort of randomness, that's interesting. So hopefully I'm not misrepresenting you, but it's you said evolution is blind and random without divinity.
Well, only in the sense that it's unguided. So blind in that sense. Certainly not in the sense that, I mean, it, according to the theory, it does select for evolutionary success or success of the progenation of its species. So yeah, it's not going to be random ultimately, but it'll be unguided, let's say. So blind in that sense, yeah.
What do you mean by unguided? Because I feel we might have very different views on, like, teleology, for example. We might differ quite a bit. So,
well, if we're talking about naturalistic evolution again, unguided in the sense that there's no divinity watching over it, guiding it.
Or no personhood at all.
No personhood at all. I think a naturalist evolution proponent would absolutely endorse that.
Yeah.
And that, with respect to teleology, I don't know if it has any teleology on a naturalist view other than the progeny of the species. Like, we're going to create more, or the furtherance of the species, protection of the species, which is a little bit odd because it's weird to call that teleology, as if, like, it's non-cognitive teleology. It's not as if the individual species or organisms are thinking they're doing this. It's just the process has that end, I suppose, which is kind of an odd teleology. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess the issue I'm picking up on, would you say that for the sort of evolutionary facts we observe in our world, it would have been necessary for there to be a person to guide those facts? So I guess that would be the same as Aquinas's third way, fifth way? It's fifth way, isn't it?
The fourth way.
Fourth way.
Yeah.
It would be the same as Aquinas's fourth way, right? The teleological argument.
Right. Yeah. So this involves not just animals. In fact, he applies the argument primarily to bodies without minds, like objects without minds. So we're talking like an acorn becoming an oak. It's telos, or planets orbiting the sun or something like that. Those seem to have a telos or goal or purpose or order in which they're doing. And so, like an arrow that is shot from an archer. If the arrow follows a path, then it's because a mind made it follow the path. So these things without minds, and that's his focus. You can't really take that and apply it to evolution, because these are usually going to be organisms with some degree of mind. Not always, not necessarily plants, you can involve that, but yeah. No, but you asked, is my concern that you wouldn't see, what was the question? That you couldn't get evolution without God?
Sort of. So like the observed facts of evolution, would they be present without personhood behind that? If you see
I don't.
I mean.
You know, I could see why you jumped to the fourth way with that, but I don't know if I can argue for that. You know what I mean? I'm certainly not argue for that here because I don't know if you could argue for that. Well, I mean, you in general. I personally couldn't argue that, but maybe someone could. I don't know enough about the perceived facts of evolution to be well informed about that, but that it would entail that. So the way I would get to theistic evolution is that I would argue that God exists, and then I would just say, okay, on balance, which is the better theory, evolution or like creation, intelligent design, like Noah's Ark and all that. On balance, which is the better theory, well, okay, we'll just allot it to evolution, and since we've already accepted that God exists, that's just going to entail theistic evolution. That's how I would get there. I wouldn't necessarily say that it's got to be the one based on the evidence, yeah.
Okay, no, that's fair enough. That makes sense, especially if you put God first and then you can derive that later. Yeah. So right. I'm sort of sidetracking here, but what would you? I think you sort of mentioned it as well. What would you think about the problem of evil from evolution? So, like the billions of years of animal suffering is a necessary part of evolution.
That's a good example, but how would they be suffering though?
How would they be suffering?
Yeah.
What do you mean by how?
Well, you said that the billions of animals that would be suffering
through billions of years.
Through evolutionary processes. How are they suffering?
How are they suffering?
What do you mean by suffering?
So this is quite interesting because the way I would frame the argument would be very broad. So it wouldn't get the point of this sort of argument would be an intuition pull rather than getting really specific about something. So the way I would frame it would be. The suffering we observe through evolutionary processes and the suffering that would have been necessary for evolution to come about, would that be more expected given theism or non-theism? Well, prima facie on the face of it, right? Surely it's non-theism. We don't have to get into specifics about what suffering is morally or things like that.
I think we might need to, but go ahead.
Yeah, but just on a purely intuitive level, you might say intuitively you're more expecting atheism.
Yeah, I would resist this because I'm thinking, well, what we understand as suffering, like my son not getting candy before dinner is him suffering. You know what I mean? Like, and so it's gonna feel like suffering, or human beings dying feels like suffering, but like if that's just the natural order of things, or certainly animals who are non-rational dying, like is that suffering? You know what I mean? So I wouldn't necessarily even buy into the premise that it's suffering. Certainly not that there's billions of years of suffering to get to this. It would just be like a natural process. It would almost be like, I mean, I know that animals are not just immaterial objects like rocks or something, but I would see it more akin to rocks moving around and volcanoes exploding rather than human beings experiencing like severe agony or something like that. You know what I mean? Like it would just be natural processes. So I guess I don't share the intuition that that's billions of years of suffering. I mean, so connects us here. Pain is suffering, not the death itself. That's true. So there's suffering. Well, there's going to be pain. There's going to be pleasures and pain. But then again, that reminds us that like God, as ultimate giver of all good things, is the giver of pleasure. And it's like, do we fault him for not giving us more pleasure? No, but we fault him for giving us the pain. It's like, you got to understand this comes with the deal. You get existence for free. You didn't have to work for that. It was given to you as a gift. You get pleasure, as a part and parcel of that existence. That's really nice. And then we're going to complain about the pain part. You know what I mean? It's like, you have to take the whole package to understand what you're getting here. And similarly for animals, you can't just fault it and then be like, well, we get all this pain. It's like, well, you got so much good too. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's kind of stacking it negatively to say that, oh, it's just a bunch of pain. It just would be an incomplete sort of analysis of an account of what's going on, I think.
Yeah. So I think another crucial part of that sort of argument is that I'm not saying what's good and what's bad. So I'm not making a claim that suffering is bad. I'm just saying it's less expected on the face of it. So it's not necessary to say what is good and what is bad, and saying that God's giving this not a trade-off, but he's giving us pleasures, and we shouldn't overlook that. It would be as simple as saying, and maybe that's a downfall of the argument, but as simple as, would we expect God or no God given all this suffering through evolutionary history? I mean, it's a really simple argument because it's really just attacking that intuition.
Yeah, I like the argument, but on the theist side, they might come back and say, well, you need an explanation for that pleasure and pain. And sure, evolution can give you that, but that's kind of preloaded already into that. But with God, you get a rationale for why there's pleasure and pain, and you get into sort of metaphysical arguments for, that. And then also you can talk about, I know you said the suffering and pain is not necessarily, we're not calling it bad or whatever, but like the fact that it can be good, I think, that it can indicate that you've broken a bone and you're now in danger, your life's in danger, so you need to, get to help or something like that. So it can be like a flashing, signal or light on your dash in your car to notify you something's wrong. So that could be really, really helpful. And you could argue as a theist, well, God pre-programmed these things in there to give you pleasure for your satisfaction, to give you pain to alert you of danger. And all this is to be expected on theism, that God would give you these good things. So that's just a theist rejoinder. But I like the argument that you're thinking. It reminds me of Swinburne's way of arguing for God's existence, like a Bayesian reasoning, like given the evidence, this is what to be expected. It's a really nice way to argue. I like this strategy.
No, I love that sort of stuff. The Bayesian analysis.
Very creative.
He's a quick one because I've got 3 minutes left, but
for sure.
Nathan, not to bring up Nathan because there's a whole controversy. But his dissertation was on divine psychology, which is really, I find that stuff so interesting. And I guess the idea behind that is, what would we expect from God-given theism? And it's sort of like that there was a paper by a guy called Neil Sinababu. I'm not sure if I'm getting his name correct.
I know him. Yep. Yeah, I know.
Do you know his paper?
Sinababu. I don't know the paper, no.
He has a paper called Electrons in Love. I haven't read it.
I think I've heard of it. Yeah, I've not read it though.
Really interesting stuff. Like, what would we expect? If we just worked off the single sort of premise that God exists, what would we expect? And it seems you've got this sort of wide variety of things that you could expect. Why would you expect? These embodied by flesh, sort of human beings, and all these animals, and we live on this planet Earth, and all these different facts. Would that really be expected given theism? And that's just. It'd be very tricky to say, what we would expect and what we wouldn't.
That's true. Like it's intuition pumping and conceptualizing, and some philosophers are going to say, well, I can't conceive of this, or I can conceive of this, and they'll argue about that. But if you just go back to, again, like assuming, like you make the probability judgment using Bayesian logic, like assuming that this is our given, that God, I don't know, is the classical God of theism, all giving, or omniscient, all powerful, so on and so forth, omnibenevolent as well, then would want these good things. I think you could build it in that way, but just kind of my thoughts off the cuff there. Yeah. But I do see people going back and forth. I can't conceive of that. And you get to kind of fundamental brass tacks. Yeah. And at that point, it's just like, okay, we've reached impasse. That's just,
Perhaps there's an argument for why philosophy isn't so good, but I think I'll leave that there for tonight. Cool. I hope everything's well with you and your family.
Yeah. Same to you with school and uni, and
thank you.
You're coming up soon on the. I am just really sad that you won't be able to celebrate Thanksgiving. To be honest with you, you can still celebrate it. You just in solidarity with us Americans.
I don't know what Thanksgiving is, to be honest.
Yeah. When I was in France many years ago, I spent summer 3 months in France, and they do have 4th of July there. It's just not a holiday. And they have it on the calendar. And man, it was great. We celebrated it. We got, hot dogs and apple pies out of a little box, that you can get at a gas station or something like that. And so I was like, it feels like I'm glad somebody can celebrate it with me. So
yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. Well, it's good to see you.
Good to see you as well.
You're doing well.
Yeah, I am. Bye. Well, come back anytime. I'll talk to you next time.
Will do.
All right. Bye-bye. All right, cool. So we are near the end, but I saw you on earlier, and so I see you, bud, and I'm gonna give you a chance to come on for a good 20 minutes, and then we're really gonna cut it off there. So Cameron looks like he's 15 years old. Man, if he is, he's a brilliant 15-year-old. I don't think he's 15. He just started university, so but yeah, he's a great guy. All right, we're gonna bring on one more guest, and then we will put a pin in it for next time. So I'll bring you on, bud. I don't think I've seen you before, but welcome. Good to meet you. What do you want to talk about?
Hi, can you hear me?
I can, yeah.
All right. I just came on YouTube just now, and I saw that there was a philosophy call-in show, which is really interesting. I've never seen that before. And you teach philosophy, right?
I do. Yeah. I'm in Baltimore. I teach at a local university here. And this is kind of just a side gig. So.
No, yeah. That's awesome. I noticed I clicked on your little website thing. It says one of your interests was in virtue ethics.
That's it. Yeah, it's a huge interest of mine.
That's awesome. I remember. Yeah. I when I started trying to read about philosophy, I remember hearing about deontology and utilitarianism. And virtue ethics was something in the background. It's like we don't, but it's a really interesting approach. How do you understand virtue ethics?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I didn't learn about it until grad school. Like all through my undergrad, I don't even know. Like it's funny to me. Like some people, like they remember in undergrad, they're like, "Yeah, I remember reading about this," and I'm just like, I don't even remember what I read, but I don't remember reading about virtue ethics. But I like it. I teach on it. It's grounded. It finds it, stuff in Aristotle and Plato. So I teach on Aristotle's version of virtue ethics. I teach on Aquinas' virtue ethics as well. And just, you have the virtues, the vices, they're all born out of habits. Habits are things that are internal dispositions that are learned. They're not, innate, and they can be strengthened or weakened. And then within virtue, between virtue and vice, you have where most people because it's exceedingly difficult to find any virtue whatsoever, let alone to have all the virtues. Like if you had all the virtues, you'd be a perfect person. So, but like to say have the virtue of generosity or something like giving. Well, do I have that virtue? Well, maybe I do, maybe I don't. I need to find somebody who has the virtue and embodies it really well and compare myself to them. Like, do I have what they have? Probably not. So like it's interesting. Like you get some really interesting discussions. And then, so most people I would say are in that continent to incontinent level between virtue and vice. And then by the time you get Aquinas, you get the theological virtues and then you get them shaped a different way because he has not just the here and now, but also the hereafter and the eternal in mind as well with respect to like what these virtues point to. So, for example, just take one example, courage. For Aristotle, the embodiment of courage would be the soldier, the one who faces fear of death in war. For Aquinas, it would be the martyr. He also faces fear of death, but he does so for eternal reasons, not just for political reasons. So it just kind of transforms the virtues, although he has the same framework. So it's really fascinating. But what's your entry point to the virtue ethics since you're interested in it?
Well, for a long time, now I'm starting to think it's kind of a meaningless label. But I come from like a very naturalistic influence, and I'm just kind of like looking for like, okay, what sort of ethical theory might best fit a naturalized view of the world? And I saw that there was we do have the ancient sources. We got Aristotle, we got Aquinas, and I'm guessing you're more of like a Thomist sort of background, just by looking through your channel. I saw there was a big revival of like virtue ethics back in the 20th century with like philosophers like Philippa Foot and Elizabeth Anscombe, I think.
Anscombe, yep.
There's a third lady. I forgot her name though.
I forget. Yeah, those are two. Something. Anscombe would be my go-to. She had a paper called Modern Moral Philosophy. It's just fantastic. Comparing modern moral philosophy with classical philosophy, modern moral philosophy would just be stuff like utilitarianism, hedonism, even though it has ancient roots, and so forth. Yeah. And that these like are mostly focused on the actions. Like typical setup is like, hey, here's a moral dilemma, like trolley problem. What should the guy do? What action should we do? Which action is correct? Whereas virtue ethics, classical moral philosophy focuses on the character of a person. That what was missing. So yeah, I love Anscombe on this. Yeah.
I guess since I guess you probably have a better answer. I mean, I'm not super familiar with like Thomistic thought, but like I'm guessing like the whole purpose and nature of a thing is ultimately grounded in sort of like God's providence in the world, right? When like I'm like in a
ultimately,
I'm trying to have like I'm having difficulty to see how you would ground that like in a naturalistic perspective, and like and I've run into this problem. I'm curious like what you might think of it, right? So if when it comes to like the problem of like the ultimately the only reason it seems like anything has a purpose or a function, that's always identified through how we experience it, like through like a conscious act, right? Like it's like if you just try to like if I try to like say, oh, that's a good knife or something like that, I can't really just talk about the features of the knife. It's always bound up in how I'm using the knife and stuff like that. So it seems like normativity and function are ultimately grounded in how we experience the world. And of course, you've had conversations on here, you know, about probably the nature of naturalizing consciousness, right?
Perhaps, yeah, maybe not those terms, but yeah.
So the problem that I see, I don't think there's much of a problem with like a sort of like a naturalistic account of consciousness, but because I think the ultimate problem is that there's this weird reflexive problem, right? In that like consciousness isn't just an object in the world; it's like the very background by which the world presents itself. So how do you describe something that you essentially isn't just an object of your knowledge, it's sort of the background of your knowledge? And it seems ultimately like intentionality and normativity are grounded in sort of the same thing. So how do you reflexively sort of account for that sort of thing?
Yeah, that's a really good. So there's a couple of things in play here. So with respect to the virtue ethics grounding and natural kind of, let's say, grounding, for lack of a better word, Aristotle does try to ground it in the human person, but he grounds it in human nature. So it's going to be different from like evolutionary or biological accounts of morality. It just is a metaphysical account of morality where it's just human nature that there's a certain way it excels. It's almost like plant nature. Certain plants just need certain things that are going to help them to flourish. Yeah. Well, aside from the soul, it's like plants flourishing versus human plants. Like when people hear of eudaimonia and they hear of human flourishing, they're thinking, oh, well, I get to just pick what's going to make me flourish. Like I'll figure out what I want to have a career in and all that. He doesn't have that in mind. It's not that subjective. It's objective. Like what makes a plant flourish? A plant can't wake up one day and decide, I'm going to drink motor oil and that'll help me flourish. Like there are objective features. What helps a plant flourish? Same with human beings. So Aristotle does objectively ground it in human nature. The problem with that, it works so far as it works, but the problem with that, by the time Aquinas comes on, he's going to say, okay, well, it's grounded in human nature, but he'll ask a further question behind that, like, why is human nature like that? You know what I mean? Like, why should human nature be the way that it is? I mean, that only gets you so far, and that brings him to sort of metaphysical questions about God, of course. So, but with the question on, and so he's going to incorporate like transcendent accounts of morality there, and grounded morality. So with respect to the consciousness, that's a whole other discussion as well. But yeah, for me, the consciousness, though, I don't think naturalistic accounts can really explain consciousness. And I think the biggest problems are going to be, number one, qualia. Like you can't have you have computational consciousness. That's the easy problem of consciousness that David Chalmers talks about. The hard problem of consciousness is actual experience of what it's like to experience the shade of red. Like, what does that look like? You know, those qualia, those actual felt qualities. And then also the one that you raise is like the subject of consciousness. That would be another problem for naturalism, because the consciousness is not just another object in the world. It is a first-person perspective, and you're the seat. The seat of consciousness is you. So it really is going to like taint any naturalistic account, because naturalistic accounts of the mind really just want to treat the mind as like from a third-person perspective. The mind is this way, and it's like, hold up, that's not how human beings work. You're using the mind to talk about the mind. Like you need to talk about it from a first. So like phenomenological accounts are really helpful here. Like I am the subject of consciousness, and then like proceeding from there. Whereas naturalistic accounts will be like, well, let's say that the brain is this and the consciousness is this, as if they're not included in that sort of, you know, that the conversation. But yeah,
there's a weird circularity and like transcendental nature to consciousness. Someone like said like the word like very powerful. It's like it has epistemic primacy. It sounds very fancy when you put it that way. But I don't think there's a hard problem. I think the main problem is that there's just a circularity problem, right? And the reason I think that is like there's no reason to suppose that physical qualities can't have experiential qualities. Usually, what are some of the reasons people usually give as to why basically nature can have experience? What do you usually hear?
So ways to get around this, because I think it's usually just taken as a datum that you have something that you have the universe or items in the universe, objects that are non-conscious. Let's take rocks, planets, whatever they may be. Unless, of course, you assume pantheism or panentheism or panpsychism or something like that. But the question is, like, how do you get from non-consciousness to consciousness? Like, and this can be a question about origins as well. You know, how do you get from non-conscious matter to conscious matter? And this is why you see, honestly, there's a growing trend in professional academic philosophers of adopting panpsychism as a way to, like, not only acknowledge that, hey, this is a problem, but also biting the bullet and being like, yeah, I guess just there is consciousness throughout the universe, and it gained a critical mass, and that's how we got our consciousness. You know what I mean? But they don't they don't try to resist that that's a problem. I suppose you could, like as you're doing here, is like, I imagine you're doing here, that you don't see a problem between. Yeah. But anyway, go push back on that.
So one of the sort of themes I'm exploring right now is this idea of like neutral monism, that like ultimately like nature we can't really put a definite pin on whether nature is fundamentally this physical stuff or this mental stuff. And there's kind of two reasons that we kind of give that. There's these two problems in philosophy. One's called like Hempel's dilemma, right? Have you heard of it?
I've heard of it. I can't remember what it is though.
So if you say everything is physical, right, that can either mean two things, right? Does it mean everything as physics describes it now is what ultimately what reality is composed of? In that case, then it's probably mistaken. It's incomplete. You have good reason that it's a progressive scientific project.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Yeah.
The other corner of the dilemma is to say, well, some future completed physics is going to just perfectly describe reality. Of course, if you say that, it's a reference without a referent. It doesn't. You're not saying anything. Physicalism is empty. And the second sort of critique is the idea of Russellian structuralism, and like Bertrand Russell pointed out a long time ago that, well, physics doesn't necessarily describe intrinsic properties of physics. All it's doing is kind of just describing these structural mathematical relationships. Yeah. So just from those two sort of like ideas, what reason do we have to suppose that experiential qualities can't be written in the universe? And
that's like fine. Yeah. It's almost like a promissory note. Like maybe we'll find, because it's possible now, it's plausible. Like, you have to worry about that inference. You know what I mean? Like, it's certainly possible that's a state that will unfold in the future. But you have to wonder where it's plausible, and then to hang your hat and be like, well, because it's possible, that's just what I'll believe from now on. I think that's a bit of a worry, but yeah, I agree with you. It's possible.
Yeah. So it leaves open this idea, like it's that what I said is perfectly consistent with like panpsychism and like dualism and idealism. Yeah. But hopefully what I do by that is like maybe sort of like disarm some of like the force that people usually opposit to the hard problem and stuff like that. I'm curious, have you ever heard of a theory of mind called inactivism?
Inactivism?
Inactivism.
I don't think I know any theory by that name, but go ahead and describe it. I may have heard of it.
So it's just the idea that usually it's paired with a bunch of other sort of ideas. It's that consciousness is fundamentally about embodiment, right? Uh-huh. And there's like a bunch of like other little arguments, like if I move my hand and I think about moving my hand, the same regions of my brain are activating and stuff like that. That consciousness isn't just this abstract representation of the external world. It's this sort of skillful, and it's oriented towards a skillful engagement with the world. And you have this idea that consciousness is like the continuity thesis, that mind and life are deeply continuous. That the same properties you find in mind are the same properties you find in life. Life has very organizational properties. It almost has like kind of like proto-normative intentional properties. And it's from that sort of milieu that we should sort of like our research project into consciousness should begin. You know.
Yeah. Okay. Why is it called enactivism though?
It's this idea that like, so it's going against like older computational and like representational theories of mind. Like, so like, okay, the mind represents a sort of meaning in the world. It's like, no, the world enacts meaning in the world. Like,
I see.
The classic example is like that of a sugar cell. Not a sugar cell, like a basic cell doesn't have this representation of food that is trying to identify its environment. No, it brings forth this idea of food by how it's structured and how it relates to the environment.
Okay, that's super interesting. Yeah, that's super interesting. I mean, it gets back to that question of like, isn't a mind required to like kind of confer that meaning? It's kind of weird. Like, this is, I mean, I guess I can see what is trying to be presented there, but like, I think you would ultimately have to go back to like, well, mind has to make sense of what the sugar is doing to confer that.
Absolutely.
And again, that just kind of puts the onus back on, well, no, consciousness is here rather than like being brought into, because I mean, certainly, that would be my first glance at that. I'm not sure. Yeah.
But that is true. Ultimately, like we're still stuck in that strange loop where you're ultimately everything is only made meaningful through consciousness. And every sort of like external sort of explanation presupposes your conscious experience. But I think it sort of undercuts a lot of advocates of this view. They criticize Western philosophy as being like these heavily dualistic bias where the mind and the external world are inherently separate. We have, and like mind is trapped in its own little box and it has no sort of access to the external world. When no, it says no, the mind is something that's inherently intertwined with reality. You're gonna go wrong if you don't understand it in those terms.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Man, that would go far to explain if this is true. Yeah, I do think in our modern world we've kind of gotten too bifurcated on this to a fault. We could use some of this, I think, to kind of refresh us and bring us back to the ancient medievals, like how they understood things. I think it might not be unhelpful. I think it would be cool. But yeah, I think like I'm Christian and I'm Catholic, and I think that this would go towards, for example, explaining mystical experiences, like revelatory sort of religious experiences. Like if you just said, well, matter is intertwined with mind and such that, you can see, like it would kind of open a Pandora's box here with that and with ghosts and so on. So you'd be like, okay, a little cautious about that. But again, you're going after what's true. So if that's just the way it needs to go, then it needs to go there. But yeah, I do think we've kind of spent way too long in the modern era kind of bifurcating mind and matter.
Yeah, I know do you know who John Searle is? I think he passed away recently.
Yeah.
I remember listening to his like philosophy of mind lectures, and one of the things he always goes back to Descartes, and he always references like, it's just a series of disasters in Western philosophy, and it all starts with Descartes.
Yeah, that's who I was thinking of too, Descartes on this. Yeah, bifurcation.
So it's a whole reorientation, right? The mind isn't just trying to abstractly represent an external reality it doesn't have direct access to. The mind is already heavily involved in the world, something like that.
That's such a unique way of thinking. I don't even know how that would change things, because normally I just see my mind as somebody who picks something that picks up on a field of experience. You know what I mean? So what would it be like to be entangled? You know what I mean? With my field of experience. Like I don't even know what that would mean. You know what I mean? I'm receiving data and input, but like to be intertwined with it, it'd be a weird way of. I don't know. Would that be perceptible to me? You know what I mean? Certainly, it might not change anything, but
it feels like you. Now, if I'm wrong, it sounds like you're like, maybe if I'm wrong, but like it sounds like you're presupposing like an older sort of like view of perception, where like perception are these atomized little bits of sense data that I kind of like intake and just like synthesize through habit in a meaningful way.
Yeah, I am kind of using kind of this pre-theoretical understanding of that. I'm not using any specific theory or anything I'm fighting for here, but just like what I take to be, maybe I'm wrong about this, but like like a popular understanding of perception. Like there's a field out there of data, or say the world, and I just pick up from it. But it'd be weird to reconceptualize. Of course, if we're just describing ontology and we're not describing anything that's going to impinge upon or change your perception of anything, like we're just trying to explain ontologically what's happening between the exchange between mind and matter, then that's fine. You may not even, maybe no perceptible difference whatsoever, but so it may not be weird in that sense, but yeah.
Well, I think 20 seconds left. It's really funny. I think I came on here with wanting to talk about the problem of universals, but I guess.
Oh yeah. Well, come back. Yeah, I love talking about the universals as well. Yeah.
By the way, virtue can't be taught. It's a divine gift of recollection.
Of recollection, nice, from Plato, Socrates, if you like. All right. Well, been a pleasure. Thank you. I'm glad to meet you and come back on anytime.
All right. Awesome. Nice to meet you too.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Have a good one.
Thanks. You too. All right. Cool. Well, guys, that is really it. And I'm really glad that you guys were all here for this. We got through a lot of different talks, and I am going to call it a night. So I do see my wife on here now. She must be wondering where I am. Love a Descartes joke. And then she says up here, shout out to my husband's fly haircut and beard trim. So surely got to put that on screen after she says something nice about me. So anyway, guys, it's been wonderful. And if you called in, thank you for calling in. If you didn't call in, you're looking forward to it next time. Please be here next time. We went quite long with this one. We normally only go about 2.5 hours. We went almost an hour over that, which I'm happy to do because this was a really nice session. So in any case, it's almost 8 o'clock here, and I am getting old, so this is the end of it. I will see you on Monday. Let me show you this. Go into my lives, by the way. Go into my lives, and you can see right under here. Click on the live. Let me show you. I'll zoom out. Click on the live tab. Go right there, and you can see the next one scheduled for 11/10/25 on Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern. It'll be on 3 Parts of Morality from C.S. Lewis's Mere Christianity. But I think very heavily he's drawing upon an older tradition there that is found present in Thomas Aquinas and Aristotle. So be sure to be present for that live. And if you can't make it because you're at work or something like that, then make sure you watch the replay. So it should be about anywhere between 1 hour 15 to 2 hours long. So guys, it's been a pleasure. I will see you next time. Take care. God bless, and bye-bye.